I bought the building on 4th and Main for cash 3 months ago. It was supposed to be a surprise. My daughter Zoe had spent 10 years working double shifts as a barista, dreaming of her own spot. I handed her the keys and a deed in her name, or so I thought, and told her to fly. I stayed away for 90 days to let her find her footing. I wanted her to feel the pride of ownership without her old man hovering over her shoulder. But when I pulled my rusted 1998 Ford F150 up to the curb this morning, my heart stopped. The hand-painted sign that read, Zoes Place, was gone. In its place hung a monstrosity of gold leaf and black velvet that screamed pretension, the Whitmore Tea Room. I sat in my truck for a moment, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned ash gray. I took a deep breath and stepped out. Through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows, I saw her. My Zoe. But she was not behind the espresso machine making art. She was on her hands and knees. She was wearing a gray uniform that looked 2 sizes too big, scrubbing the hardwood floor while a woman in a Chanel suit stood over her, tapping a manicured fingernail on the counter. That woman was Patricia Whitmore, my daughter's mother-in-law. I watched Patricia throw her head back and laugh at something a customer said, while her heel dug into the space right next to Zoe's hand. My blood ran cold. I reached into the pocket of my flannel shirt and pulled out my phone. I opened my banking app. The screen glowed with a balance that would make Patricia Whitmore faint. 7 figures. Liquid. And that was just the operating account. I looked at the number, reminded myself of who I really am, and then I locked the screen. I put the phone back in my pocket. Today, I would not be Caleb Jefferson, the real estate tycoon who owns half this city. Today, I would be just Caleb, the retired janitor. I wanted to see exactly how far they would go. I pushed the door open. The bell above the door chimed, a cheerful sound that clashed violently with the scene unfolding before me. The smell of lavender and expensive perfume was suffocating, masking the rich aroma of coffee I knew my daughter loved. I took 1 step onto the polished timber floor, my work boots making a heavy thud. Before I could even call out my daughter's name, a shadow blocked my path. It was Patricia. She moved with surprising speed for a woman balancing on 4-inch stilettos. She held up a hand, palm facing me, like a traffic cop stopping a stray dog. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with ice. "Deliveries are around the back. We do not allow service staff through the front entrance. It disturbs the ambiance." I looked at her. Her face was caked in makeup, her hair sprayed into a helmet of blonde defiance. She did not recognize me. To her, I was just an old black man in a stained jacket. "I am not delivery," I said, my voice low and gravelly. "I am here to see Zoe." Patricia let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. She turned her head slightly, not taking her eyes off my boots. "Zoe," she barked, "there is a man here claiming to know you. Handle this. I do not pay you to have your relatives loiter in my lobby." Zoe looked up from the floor. Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed with red. When she saw me, terror flashed across her face. Not relief, terror. She scrambled to her feet, wringing a dirty rag in her hands. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, you have to go. Not now, please." Why was she scared? I stepped forward, ignoring Patricia. "Zoe, what is going on? Why is the sign changed? Why are you on the floor? I gave you this place to run, not to scrub." Patricia stepped between us again, her perfume cloud hitting me like a physical blow. "You gave her," she scoffed. "Oh, that is rich. Listen to me, old man. Zoe does not run anything. She lacks the sophistication for a clientele of this caliber. My son and I have taken over management to save this sinking ship. Now, Zoe is working off the debt she incurred by being incompetent. Now get out. You are blocking the light." I did not move. I planted my feet. I looked over Patricia's shoulder at my daughter. "Zoe, is this true?" Zoe looked down at her shoes, unable to meet my gaze. "Just go, Dad. I'll call you later, please. Do not make a scene." "Make a scene!" Patricia shrieked. Her voice drew the attention of the 3 women sitting at the best table by the window. They stopped sipping their tea and looked over with expressions of mild disgust. One of them whispered something, and they all giggled. That sound, that dismissive, entitled giggle, sparked a fire in my belly that I had not felt since my days in the Marines. I looked at Patricia. I am not leaving until my daughter explains why her name is not on the door. Patricia narrowed her eyes. She looked down at the bucket of soapy water Zoe had been using. With a casual flick of her foot, she tipped the bucket. Gray, lukewarm water sloshed out, soaking the hem of my jeans and covering my heavy work boots. The women at the table gasped, but it was theatrical. They were enjoying the show. "Oops," Patricia said, her face devoid of any apology. "Look what a mess you have caused. Now my floor is ruined. Clean up your shoes and get out before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing." Trespassing. On property I bought with a single wire transfer. The irony tasted like copper in my mouth. I looked down at my wet boots. I could feel the cold water seeping into my socks. I slowly raised my eyes to hers. "You made a mistake, Patricia." Patricia laughed again. "The only mistake was letting your daughter marry into my family. We are trying to elevate her, but clearly, the apple does not fall far from the tree." Just then, the office door at the back of the shop opened. Tyler walked out. My son-in-law. He was wearing a slim-fit navy suit that I knew cost more than Zoe's car. He looked fresh, rested, the complete opposite of my exhausted daughter. He saw the water. He saw me standing there, fists clenched. He saw his mother smirking, and then he saw the customers watching. "Tyler," I said, my voice steady, "tell your mother to step aside." Tyler hesitated. He looked at Zoe, who was now crying silently, tears tracking through the dust on her cheeks. He looked at me. Then he looked at his mother. The choice was made in a split second. He adjusted his tie and walked toward us. But he did not stand beside his wife. He stood beside Patricia. "Dad, you need to leave," Tyler said, his voice smooth and fake. "We have VIP guests coming in 20 minutes. Look at you. You are wet. You look like you just came from a construction site. It is not a good look for the brand we are building." "The brand," I repeated. "The brand is theft, Tyler. This is Zoe's shop." "Not anymore," Tyler said, checking his watch. "We restructured. It is complicated business stuff, Dad. You would not understand. Just go. Wait for us outside if you want, or better yet, go home. We will send Zoe over with some leftovers later if there are any." Leftovers. They were talking about my daughter and me as if we were stray dogs begging for scraps. I looked at Tyler. I remembered the day he asked for my blessing. He had promised to protect her. He had promised to honor her. Now he was standing there, a coward in an expensive suit, hiding behind his mother. I looked at Zoe one last time. She gave me a tiny, desperate shake of her head. She was begging me not to fight. She was terrified of something, or someone, and I realized that if I exploded now, if I revealed my hand, I might put her in more danger. I needed to know the full extent of the rot before I cut it out. I needed to know exactly how deep the infection went. "Very well," I said. "I will go." I turned around, my wet boots squeaking on the floorboards I had paid to have refinished. As I reached the door, Patricia called out one last thing. "And take your truck with you. It is an eyesore parked in front of my establishment. We need that spot for paying customers." I pushed the door open and stepped out into the gray afternoon. It had started to drizzle. I walked to my truck, but I did not get in. Instead, I leaned against the hood and looked back at the shop. Through the window, I saw Patricia hand Zoe a mop and point violently at the puddle she had created. I saw Tyler pour himself a glass of champagne and sit with his mother's friends, laughing as if he had just told a witty joke. I took a deep breath of the cold air. My eyes drifted from the window to the street. Right there, directly in front of the cafe, in the loading zone clearly marked with yellow paint, sat a brand new white Mercedes convertible. It was parked illegally. It was blocking the wheelchair ramp, and the vanity plate read, Patty W. It was Patricia's car, parked on my sidewalk, in front of my building. I pulled my phone out again. I did not call the police, not yet. I called a number I had not used in 10 years, a number for a man named Stone. He answered on the first ring. "Mr. Jefferson," Stone said. "It has been a long time." I watched Patricia inside, laughing, her head thrown back. "It has," I said. "I have a job for you. I want you to look into a loan. And Stone, I want you to send a tow truck to my building on 4th. Tell them to bring the heavy-duty rig." "Why?" Stone asked. "Is there a wreck?" "Not yet," I said, watching Tyler raise his glass. "But there is about to be." I watched the white Mercedes gleaming in the loading zone for one more second before turning my back on the street. I walked around to the alley behind the building. The bricks were familiar. I knew them because I paid for the tuck pointing 3 months ago. I pushed open the heavy steel service door and stepped into the kitchen. If the front of the shop was a palace of pretension, the back was a dungeon. The air was thick with the smell of burnt milk and rotting garbage. Grease coated the floor, making my boots stick with every step. In the corner, sitting on an overturned milk crate next to the mop sink, was Zoe. She had her head in her hands. Her shoulders were shaking. I walked over and placed a hand on her head. Her hair, usually so bright and full of life, felt limp and greasy. She looked up. Her eyes were swollen, red-rimmed, and terrified. She looked like a child who had broken a vase and was waiting for the belt. "Dad," she choked out, "you should not be here. Patricia will be back any second." She went to check on the ballet service. "Let her come," I said, my voice low. I pulled a plastic stool over and sat in front of her. My knees cracked. I ignored the pain. I needed answers. "Zoe, look at me. How did this happen? The deed was in your name. The business license was in your name." Zoe wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "It was, Dad. It was. But then the pipes burst 2 weeks after you left. And then the health inspector showed up and said we needed a new ventilation system. It was one thing after another. I did not have the capital. I was drowning." I frowned. I had left her with a $20,000 operating cushion. That should have covered minor repairs. But before I could ask, Zoe reached into her apron pocket. She pulled out a folded, crumpled piece of paper that looked like it had been wet and dried a dozen times. "Tyler said his mom could help," Zoe whispered, handing me the paper. "He said she knew people. He said she could lend us the money to fix everything and upgrade the look so we could charge more. He said it was an investment." I took the paper. It was a contract, not a standard loan agreement from a bank, but a private promissory note. I put on my reading glasses, the cheap ones I bought at the drugstore to keep up my appearance. I scanned the text. The legal jargon was dense, predatory, and designed to confuse, but I had been reading real estate contracts for 40 years. I knew a shark bite when I saw one. The terms were criminal. It was a loan for $50,000, payable to Whitmore Holdings LLC. The interest rate was 25%, compounding weekly. But the kicker was the default clause. In the event of a single missed payment, full ownership of the business, the equipment, and the leasehold improvements would revert to the lender. I looked at the signature at the bottom. It was Zoe's handwriting, but it was shaky, jagged. "He made you sign this?" I asked, tapping the paper. Zoe looked at the wall. "He said if I did not sign it, I did not believe in him. He said I did not believe in our future. He stood over me, Dad. He kept shouting that I was ungrateful for his mother's generosity. I just wanted him to stop yelling." I felt a vein throb in my temple. $50,000. I looked around the kitchen. The dishwasher was leaking. The fridge was humming too loud. There were no upgrades here. "Where did the money go, Zoe?" I asked. "Out front," she said, gesturing toward the dining room. "The velvet curtains, the gold statues, the imported tea sets that nobody is allowed to touch. Patricia spent it all on the decor. She hired her friend's interior design firm. So they laundered the money, I thought. They loaned her money to improve the business, spent it on useless trinkets through their friends, and saddled my daughter with a debt she could never repay, all while securing a clause that would let them steal the shop the moment she stumbled. It was not just theft, it was an extraction. I folded the paper and put it in my shirt pocket. "This is not a loan, Zoe. This is a ransom note." Before Zoe could answer, the double doors swinging from the dining room flew open. Patricia Whitmore stood there. The humidity of the kitchen hit her, and she wrinkled her nose, as if she had just stepped in dog filth. She saw me sitting on the stool, and her eyes narrowed into slits. "You!" she spat. "I thought I told you to leave." I stood up slowly. "I am visiting my daughter, Patricia." "Visiting hours are over," she snapped. She marched into the kitchen, her heels clicking like gunshots on the tile. She looked at Zoe, who immediately shrank back onto the milk crate. "Get up, Zoe," Patricia barked. "Table 4 needs water, and the toilet in the ladies' room is backed up again. Go deal with it." Zoe scrambled to her feet. "Yes, Patricia, I am going." "Sit down, Zoe," I said. My voice was not loud, but it carried the weight of iron. Zoe froze. She looked between me and Patricia, caught in the crossfire. Patricia laughed, a high, brittle sound. Oh, listen to him. The big man commands. Listen to me, you old relic. This is my establishment. I pay the bills here. I call the shots. And right now, I am short-staffed because your incompetent daughter cannot manage a schedule. She looked around the kitchen, her eyes landing on a pile of dirty dishes stacked high in the sink, plates caked with half-eaten pastries and lipstick-stained cups. She grabbed a stained, gray apron off a hook on the wall and threw it at me. It hit me in the chest and slid down to the floor. If you want to stay, you can make yourself useful, she sneered. Since you are so keen on family time, you can help her dig out of this hole. Wash the dishes. I looked at the apron on the floor. Then I looked at Patricia. Excuse me, I said. You heard me, she said, crossing her arms. You look like you know your way around a scullery. Wash the dishes. Or get out. And take your daughter with you so I can finally fire her for cause and sue her for the balance of the loan. The threat hung in the air. If Zoe left, they would ruin her credit, garnish her wages, and bury her in court fees. They had her trapped. I bent down and picked up the apron. It smelled of sour milk. Fine, I said. Dad, no, Zoe whispered. You do not have to. It is okay, honey, I said, tying the strings around my waist. I do not mind hard work. Patricia smirked. Her victory was complete. She had reduced the father to a servant and the daughter to a slave. Good, she said. Do not break anything. That china is worth more than your truck. She turned on her heel and strutted back toward the office, leaving the door slightly ajar. I walked to the sink. I turned on the faucet. The water was lukewarm at best. The grease trap was clogged. I plunged my hands into the murky water and started scrubbing. The repetitive motion was grounding. Scrub, rinse, stack, scrub, rinse, stack. As I worked, I let my eyes wander. I checked the electrical outlets, non-compliant. I checked the fire suppression system above the stove. The inspection tag was 6 months out of date. Patricia was cutting corners everywhere except where the customers could see. Then I saw it. High up in the corner of the room, nestled between a dusty ventilation duct and the ceiling, was a small black dome, a security camera. But it was not just any camera. It was an Omnisite 4000. I knew because I installed the same system in my high-rise apartments. It was top of the line. High-definition video, night vision, and most importantly, high-fidelity audio recording with cloud storage. I looked at the blinking blue light. It was active. Patricia was recording everything. She probably used it to spy on the staff, to catch them stealing croutons or taking unauthorized breaks. She thought it was her tool of control. She did not realize she was handing me a weapon. I kept scrubbing, keeping my face angled away from the lens, playing the part of the beaten-down old man. 10 minutes passed. The pile of dishes was shrinking. Z had gone out to plunge the toilet, her face burning with shame. I was alone in the kitchen when I heard Patricia's voice. She was in the office, but the door was open, and her voice carried over the hum of the refrigerator. She was on the phone. I stopped scrubbing. I turned off the water. I picked up a towel and started drying a plate, moving closer to the office door, staying just out of sight. Veronica, you have to come see it, Patricia was saying. Her voice was giddy, breathless with excitement. It is a gold mine. I told you. Pause. She was listening. No, do not worry about her, Patricia laughed. Zoe is a non-factor. She is spineless. I have her running in circles. Today I made her scrub the floor in front of the mayor's wife. It was hilarious. I gripped the plate so hard I thought it would snap. Yes, the loan is the key, Patricia continued. She signed it. Tyler made sure of that. We put a clause in there that accelerates the debt if the business value drops below a certain threshold. And guess who determines the valuation? We do. Pause. Exactly. I am going to trigger the default next week. We will transfer the title to Tyler's name on Monday. Then we kick her to the curb. I already have the divorce papers drafted. Tyler is just waiting for my signal. We take the shop, we take the equipment, and she gets left with the debt. It is clean, it is legal, and it is going to make us a fortune. I stood there, frozen. The cruelty was breathtaking. It was not just greed, it was malice. They were not just stealing a business, they were dissecting a life. They had planned this from the beginning. The marriage, the loan, the renovations. It was all a long con to strip my daughter of her assets and leave her destitute. And Tyler, my son-in-law, He was not just a coward hiding behind his mother. He was an active participant. He was the inside man. Patricia laughed again. Oh, and the best part. Her father is here, the old janitor. I have him washing dishes in the back. Can you believe it? Free labor. They are a family of servants, Veronica. It is in their DNA. I looked up at the camera in the corner. The blue light blinked steadily. Recording. She had just confessed to fraud, conspiracy, and predatory lending, all while standing 10 feet away from a high-definition microphone she had paid for. I carefully placed the dry plate on the stack. I took off the apron. I folded it neatly and placed it on the counter. My hands were shaking, not from fear, not from age, but from the adrenaline of the hunt. I had the motive, I had the method, and now, thanks to Patricia's vanity, I knew where the evidence was. I walked back to the sink and turned the water on again, just in case she came out. But my mind was racing. I needed access to that cloud server. I needed those recordings, and I knew exactly who to call. Zoe walked back into the kitchen. She looked exhausted. She saw me washing dishes, and her eyes filled with tears again. "Dad, please stop," she whispered. "You do not have to do this." I looked at her. I saw the little girl who used to ride on my shoulders. I saw the woman who worked 2 jobs to save for this dream. And I saw the victim of a family of vultures. "I am almost done, Zoe," I said, scrubbing a coffee cup. "Just a little bit more." I was not talking about the dishes. Suddenly, the front door chimed. A commotion started in the dining room. High-pitched voices, laughter, the clinking of glasses. Patricia came rushing out of the office, phone still in hand. "They are here," she hissed at Zoe. "The garden club. Get out there and take their coats. And make sure you smile. You look like a funeral mute." She turned to me. "And you, stay back here. If I see your face out there, I will have you arrested." She smoothed her skirt, put on a dazzling fake smile, and swept through the double doors. Z looked at me, helpless. "Go," I said gently. "Do what she says, for now." Zoe nodded and followed her mother-in-law. I waited until the doors swung shut. Then I took out my phone. I dialed Stone. "Mr. Jefferson," Stone answered. "The tow truck is 5 minutes away." "Good," I said. "Let it wait around the corner. I have a new priority. I need you to get a subpoena." "A subpoena?" Stone asked. "For what?" "For the security footage of the Whitmore Tea Room," I said, looking up at the black dome. "Specifically, the audio files from the last hour. And Stone, I want you to look into the ownership of a shell company called Whitmore Holdings LLC. "Consider it done," Stone said. "What is the play?" "The play," I said, watching the soapy water swirl down the drain. "The play is that I am going to buy my daughter's freedom, and the price is going to be everything Patricia Whitmore owns." I dried my hands on my jeans. I was done washing dishes. It was time to take out the trash. The humiliating uniform scratched against my daughter's skin. It was a short black dress with a frilly white apron, the kind of cheap costume you would buy at a party store for a joke. But nobody was laughing. Patricia had forced Zoe to wear it for the grand opening of the Whitmore Tea Room. She claimed it added a touch of classic service, but I knew the truth. It was a collar. It was a way to remind Zoe that she was no longer the owner. She was the help. I stood in the corner near the service station, pretending to fix a loose hinge on a cabinet door. I had spent the last 2 hours being invisible, a skill I learned growing up where I did. I watched my daughter tug at the hem of the skirt, her face burning with shame. She looked at me once, her eyes pleading for me to intervene, but I held my ground. I needed to see the whole show. I needed every single person in this room to reveal exactly who they were before I brought the hammer down. The guests began to arrive at 2 o'clock sharp. They were Patricia's inner circle, a flock of women in pastel suits and oversized hats who smelled like old money and new surgery. They swept into the cafe as if they were doing the floorboards a favor by walking on them. Tyler was at the door, greeting them with a smile that looked like it had been stapled onto his face. He bowed and scraped, taking coats, offering compliments that sounded rehearsed. "Welcome, ladies," Tyler said, his voice slick with oil. "Please, sit anywhere. The tea is imported, and the ambiance is, well, we like to think it is elevated." Patricia emerged from the kitchen like a queen greeting her subjects. She had changed into a cream-colored silk blouse and pants that probably cost more than the renovation budget. She clapped her hands for attention. "Ladies, thank you for coming," she announced. "I know it is a bit rustic, but we are doing our best to bring some culture to this neighborhood. It has been a passion project of mine to rehabilitate this space." Rehabilitate, as if my building had been a criminal. I tightened the screw on the hinge until the metal groaned. "Zoe," Patricia snapped, snapping her fingers without looking at her. "Champagne for the ladies. Chop chop." Zoe hurried over with a tray. Her hands were shaking. The heavy glass flute chattered against the tray. She moved from table to table, pouring the sparkling wine. I watched the women look her up and down. They did not see a person, they saw a prop. One woman, a redhead with a face pulled so tight she looked surprised to be alive, leaned over to Patricia. "Is that the girl Tyler married?" she whispered loud enough for the whole room to hear. Patricia sighed dramatically. "Yes, that is her. We are trying to teach her the value of hard work. She has potential, I suppose, but she lacks polish. We thought starting her from the bottom would build character." The women giggled. It was a cruel, chirping sound. "Poor Patricia," the redhead said. "You are a saint for taking on such a burden." I felt a muscle jump in my jaw. I looked at Tyler. He was standing right there, listening to them mock his wife. He did not say a word. He just adjusted his cufflinks and took a sip of his own drink. Zoe finished pouring the champagne and retreated to the counter. She kept her head down, trying to disappear. I walked over to her, keeping my voice low. "You do not have to do this, Zoe," I said. "Take off that apron. Walk out the door." She looked at me, terror swimming in her eyes. "I cannot, Dad. The loan, the contract. If I walk out, they trigger the default clause. Tyler said his lawyer is ready to file the paperwork tomorrow. I lose everything." "You have already lost everything," I wanted to say, but I stayed silent. I grabbed a rag and started wiping down the counter next to her, playing my part. The tea service began. Patricia had ordered expensive loose-leaf blends, but she had made Zoe prepare them in the old coffee urns in the back, because she had sold the espresso machine to pay for the flowers. The tea was lukewarm and bitter. I knew it. Zoe knew it. But Patricia insisted on serving it in fine bone china cups. Zoe carried the tray out. It was heavy, laden with teapots, cups, and tiered stands of stale pastries. She moved carefully, navigating the tight spaces between the tables. "Here we are," she said softly, placing a teapot down in front of a woman named Brenda. Brenda was Patricia's best friend, a woman with eyes like a shark and a diamond ring the size of a knuckle. Brenda watched Zoe pour the tea. She did not say thank you. She picked up the cup, brought it to her lips, and took a sip. Her face twisted in disgust. She set the cup down with a loud clatter. "Patricia," Brenda called out, "is this a joke?" The room went silent. Patricia hurried over, her smile faltering. "What is it, Brenda?" "Is something wrong?" "It is freezing," Brenda spat. "This tea is ice cold, and it tastes like dishwater. Is this what you call luxury? I thought you said you improved this place." Patricia turned pale. Her social standing was being threatened. She looked at the tea. She looked at Brenda. And then she turned her eyes on Zoe. The mask fell off. The sophisticated hostess vanished, replaced by a cornered animal. "Zoe," Patricia hissed. Zoe stepped back, clutching the empty tray to her chest. "I brewed it like you said, Patricia, in the urns. It must have cooled down while you were giving the speech." "Excuses!" Patricia shrieked. She grabbed the cup of cold tea from the table. "You incompetent little girl. You ruin everything you touch. I give you a job. I give you a chance to be part of something elegant, and you serve swill to my guests. I saw it coming. I dropped the rag. I started moving, but I was too slow." Patricia drew her arm back and threw the contents of the cup at Zoe. The brown liquid splashed across Zoe's face and the white apron. Zoe gasped, dropping the tray. It crashed to the floor, metal ringing against wood. Before Zoe could even wipe the tea from her eyes, Patricia stepped forward and slapped her. The sound was like a gunshot in the small room. It was a full, open-handed strike across the face. Zoe's head snapped to the side. She stumbled back, losing her footing on the wet floor, and fell hard onto her hip. The room was deadly silent. The garden club ladies stared, their mouths open. Even they knew a line had been crossed. "You are useless," Patricia screamed, standing over her. "Look at this mess. You are nothing but a drain on my family. Cleaning this up is all you are good for." I saw red, a pure, blinding crimson rage. I forgot the plan. I forgot the long game. I forgot that I was supposed to be a helpless old man. I roared. It was a sound that came from the bottom of my lungs, a command that shook the light fixtures. Do not touch her. I crossed the room in 3 strides. My boots slammed against the floor. I shoved a table aside, sending china crashing to the ground. I stepped between Patricia and my daughter. I towered over Patricia. I saw the fear flicker in her eyes for the first time. She took a step back, realizing that the old janitor was suddenly very big and very dangerous. You made a mistake, I growled, my hands curled into fists at my sides. I was shaking with the effort not to strike her back. You put your hands on my daughter. Patricia rallied, trying to regain her composure. She pointed a trembling finger at me. Get him out of here. Tyler, call the police. He is threatening me. I did not look at her. I bent down to help Zoe. She was sobbing, holding her cheek. A red handprint was already blooming on her pale skin. Come on, baby, I whispered. We are leaving. Now. Dad, the loan, she cried. Forget the loan, I said. I will burn this building down before I let you stay here another minute. I pulled her to her feet. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders to support her. We turned to the door, but the way was blocked. Tyler stood there. He had finally moved, but he was not coming to check on his wife. He was blocking the exit. He held his arms out, his face flushed and sweaty. Dad, stop, he said, his voice high and panic-stricken. You cannot take her. We are in the middle of service. Look, Mom is just stressed. The tea was cold. It was a mistake. Just let Zoe go to the back and clean up. Do not ruin this for me. I stopped. I looked at this man, this boy. I looked at the gold watch on his wrist. I looked at the suit he bought with money he stole from my daughter. Do not ruin this for you, I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Your mother just assaulted your wife, in public, and you are worried about the service. Tyler looked desperate. He glanced at the guests who were now whispering furiously. Dad, please, this is my big break. If this opening fails, I am finished. Just be cool. We can talk about it later. Just tell Zoe to get back to work. I looked at him. I really looked at him. And I realized that there was nothing there. No spine, no heart, just a hollow shell filled with greed and fear. I released Zoe for a second. I took a step toward Tyler. He flinched, raising his hands as if to protect his face. You are not my son, I said. The words hung in the air, heavier than the silence. I never had a son, I continued. I have a daughter, and I thought I gained a son when she married you, but I was wrong. You are not a man. You are a parasite. Tyler's face crumbled. He looked like he was going to cry, but he did not move. He stood his ground, guarding the door like a loyal dog protecting his master's property. Dad, you do not understand, he whined. Move, I said, or I will move you. Tyler hesitated. He looked at his mother. Patricia nodded sharply, silently ordering him to hold the line. No, Tyler said, puffing out his chest. She stays. She has a contract. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless bark. A contract. I reached out and grabbed Tyler by the lapels of his expensive jacket. I lifted him onto his toes. He yelped. I shoved him backward. He tripped over his own feet and went sprawling onto the floor, knocking over a coat rack. He landed hard. His phone flew out of his pocket and slid across the floorboards, stopping right at the toe of my boot. I looked down at him. He was scrambling backward, looking at me with pure terror. I grabbed Zoe's hand. Come on. We walked toward the door. As we passed Tyler, I looked down at the phone. The screen had lit up from the impact. There was a notification on the lock screen. It was a text message. The font was large because the brightness was turned all the way up. I stopped. I read the message. It was from a contact named Vinny. The message read, "You have until midnight, kid. 50 grand or we break your legs. And tell your mommy she cannot buy you out of this one." $50,000, the exact amount of the loan they forced Zoe to sign. The pieces clicked into place with the precision of a deadbolt locking. The renovation, the urgency, the takeover. It was not about upgrading the tea room. It was not about business. Tyler owed $50,000 to a loan shark, and Patricia had orchestrated a scheme to make Zoe take out a loan on the business to pay off her son's gambling debt, disguising it as an investment. They had stolen my daughter's future to save Tyler's kneecaps. I bent down and picked up the phone. "Hey," Tyler shouted from the floor. "That is mine. Give it back." I looked at the phone, then at Tyler. I slipped the phone into my pocket. "Consider it collateral," I said. I opened the door. The cool air hit us. I walked Zoe to my truck, helped her inside, and slammed the door. I walked around to the driver's side, got in, and started the engine. As we pulled away, I saw Patricia and Tyler standing in the window, arguing. Tyler was pointing at the door. Patricia was screaming. I touched the phone in my pocket. I had the smoking gun. Now, I just needed the bullets. I drove 2 blocks and pulled over. I took out my own phone and called Stone. "Did you get the subpoena?" I asked. "Working on it," Stone said. "The judge is a friend. I will have the warrant for the footage by morning." "Add something to the file," I said. "I have Tyler Whitmore's phone. He has a gambling debt, 50 grand. That is where the money went." I heard Stone typing furiously on the other end. "That changes things," Stone said. "That is criminal fraud. Conversion of funds. We can nail them on racketeering if we can prove the mother knew." "She knew," I said, watching Zoe weep in the passenger seat. "She knew everything." "Stone, I want you to find out who Vinny is. If he is a bookie, I want to know who he works for." "I am on it," Stone said. "Where are you going?" "I am taking my daughter home," I said. "And then I am going to buy a building." "Which building?" Stone asked. "The one across the street from the tea room," I said. "The old bank. I want to buy it tonight. Cash." "What for?" Stone asked. "I am going to open a coffee shop," I said. "And I am going to give away free coffee until the Whitmore Tea Room is nothing but a memory." I hung up. I looked at Zoe. She was looking at me, confused and broken. "It is going to be okay, baby," I said. "How?" she whispered. "They have the contract. They have the shop." I patted my pocket where Tyler's phone sat heavy and warm. "They have a contract," I said, "but I have the truth, and tomorrow we are going to serve it to them. Hot." I sat in the dark of my home office with only the glow of the desk lamp illuminating the cracked screen of the smartphone. Tyler Whitmore's phone. It sat on the mahogany surface like a piece of radioactive waste. My daughter was asleep in the guest room down the hall. She had cried herself into a state of exhaustion that looked too much like a coma. I covered her with a quilt I bought when she was 6 years old, and listened to her jagged breathing for an hour before I came in here. Now it was just me and the device that held the answers to why my son-in-law had turned into a monster. I picked up the phone. It was locked, of course. But Tyler was not a complex man. He was arrogant, and arrogance makes people sloppy. I had seen him unlock it a dozen times over Sunday dinners. I watched his thumb tap out the sequence. Top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. 1379, the corners of the keypad. It was the pattern of a man who wanted the path of least resistance in everything he did. I punched in the code. The phone vibrated and unlocked. I did not feel guilt. I did not feel like I was invading his privacy. I felt like a surgeon cutting open a chest cavity to find the tumor that was killing the patient. And what I found inside was malignant. I went straight to the messages. I found the thread with Vinny. It was at the top of the list, pinned for easy access. I scrolled back. The history went back 6 months. It started with small bets, 500 on the Knicks, 1,000 on the horses. Then the losses started piling up. The numbers got bigger. The tone changed. "Double or nothing on the fight," Tyler wrote 3 months ago. The response from Vinny was a simple thumbs-up emoji. The next day Tyler wrote, "I need more time." Vinny replied, "Time costs money, kid. The VIG is 10% a week." I scrolled down faster. The spiral was dizzying. Tyler was chasing his losses with the desperation of a drowning man grabbing at anchors. He lost 10 grand on a poker app. He lost 15 on a shady crypto scheme. And then came the big one, the $50,000 loss that triggered the loan shark ultimatum. But as I scrolled past the threats of broken legs and visits to his workplace, I saw something that made my blood run colder than the gambling. The debt was not $50,000. That was just what was due tonight. The total outstanding balance, including interest and penalties, was $80,000. $80,000. He had leveraged my daughter's future, her sweat, and her dignity, and it would not even clear his balance. He was throwing her into a volcano to buy himself another week of air. I took screenshots of everything. I forwarded them to my secure cloud server. I was building a dossier that would bury him. Then I closed the messaging app and opened his photos. I expected to see pictures of my daughter, maybe some shots of the renovation. Instead, I found a hidden album. It was password protected. I tried the same code, 1379. It worked. The album opened and my stomach turned over. It was full of pictures of a woman. She was not Zoe. She was young, blonde, and expensive looking. She was wearing jewelry that I recognized, a diamond tennis bracelet. Zoe had admired that bracelet in a catalog once. She told me Tyler said they could not afford it. Here it was on the wrist of a stranger. I scrolled through the dates. There were pictures of them at the plaza, pictures of them on a boat, pictures of them in bed. The dates matched the nights Tyler told Zoe he was working late at the office to secure permits for the tea room. He was not working. He was spending the money he stole from the business renovation fund on a mistress. I saved every photo. Then I went back to the messages. I needed the link. I needed to know how deep Patricia was in this. I found a thread labeled Mother. I opened it. The conversation was efficient and brutal. It read like an exchange between two conspirators, not a mother and son. Tyler wrote, "Mom, Vinny is pressing me. He says he is going to come to the grand opening." Patricia replied, "Handle him. Tell him the asset transfer is happening on Monday. Once the default is triggered, the shop is ours. I can take a line of credit against the equipment to pay him off," Tyler wrote. "Zoe is asking questions about the contract. She wants to see the books," Patricia replied. "Stall her. Break her spirit. Make her feel small. If she feels worthless, she won't fight. And keep her working. If she quits before the transfer, we lose the leverage on the non-compete clause." I read that message 3 times. Break her spirit. It was a command, a strategy. The insults, the spilled tea, the uniform. It was not just cruelty. It was a calculated psychological operation designed to paralyze my daughter so they could strip mine her life. And then I saw the message that sealed their fate. Patricia wrote, "And make sure that girl Crystal stays quiet. If Zoe finds out you were sleeping around before I get the deed, she might file for divorce and freeze the assets. Keep your zipper up until we own the building." Patricia knew. She knew about the gambling. She knew about the mistress. She was using her son's infidelity and his addiction as tools to manipulate him. She was holding the debt over his head to force him to steal the shop, and she was holding the affair over his head to keep him in line. She was the architect of this entire nightmare. I set the phone down on the desk. My hands were trembling, but not from rage anymore. They were trembling with the sheer weight of the ammunition I now possessed. I had the motive. I had the conspiracy. I had the confession. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 3 in the morning. I picked up my own phone. I dialed a number I had memorized during my time in the service. It rang twice. "Jefferson," a voice answered. It was gravelly and alert. No hello, no question about the time. Just a name. "Jax," I said. "I need you to work." "I am listening," Jax said. "I need a forensic retrieval," I said. "The St. Regis Hotel, last Friday night, room 304. The guest was registered under Tyler Whitmore." I heard the sound of a keyboard clacking in the background. Jax was already moving. "What do you need?" Jax asked. "I need hallway footage," I said. "I need to see him entering and leaving with a woman who is not his wife. And Jax, I need you to find a man named Vinny. He is a bookie operating out of the South Side. I want to know who backs him. I want to know who holds his leash." The keyboard stopped. "Vinny Santoro?" Jax asked. "That sounds right," I said. "He is mob connected," Jax said. "Small time, but he kicks up to the heavy hitters. If your boy owes him 80 large, he is in deep water." "He is drowning," I said, "and he is trying to use my daughter as a life raft. I want you to buy the debt, Jax." Silence on the line, then a low whistle. "Buy the debt," Jax repeated. "That is going to cost you a premium. Vinny does not sell paper cheap." "I do not care about the price," I said. "Offer him 100 cents on the dollar. Cash. Tonight. I want to be the one holding the note. I want to be the one Tyler Whitmore owes." "Consider it done," Jax said. "Anything else?" "Yes," I said. "Find out everything you can about Patricia Whitmore. Every bank account, every shell company, Every skeleton in her closet. If she jaywalked in 1982, I want to know about it. I will have a file on your desk by noon, Jack said. I hung up. I sat back in my chair. I looked at the photos on Tyler's phone again. The mistress laughing. Tyler holding a glass of champagne. They looked so happy, so carefree. They had no idea that the roof was about to cave in. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was not a text. It was an alert from my bank. I had set up a monitoring system on Zoe's credit years ago when she was in college. She did not know about it. It was my way of protecting her from identity theft. I unlocked my phone and opened the notification. Credit alert, new inquiry. I tapped the details. A loan application had just been submitted in the name of Zoe Jefferson. The amount was $20,000. The lender was a high-risk online creditor, the kind that preys on desperate people with bad credit. I looked at the timestamp, 3:14 a.m. Zoe was asleep in the next room. She was not applying for loans. I opened the details of the application. The IP address originated from a residential connection in the upscale district. The address matched Patricia Whitmore's house. She was not sleeping either. She was awake, sitting in her mansion, using my daughter's social security number to take out more debt. She was borrowing money in Zoe's name to fund the upgrades she claimed she was paying for. She was leveraging a woman she had already destroyed to squeeze out a few more drops of blood. Business upgrades, the application said. I stared at the screen. This was not just fraud. This was identity theft. This was a federal crime. I took a screenshot. I added it to the dossier. I picked up Tyler's phone one last time. I sent the photos of the mistress to my own number. Then I wiped the call log and the message history I had created by forwarding the files. I put the phone back exactly how I found it. Locked. Silent. I stood up and walked to the window. The streetlights were humming. The city was asleep, but I was wide awake. Patricia Whitmore thought she was playing chess with a barista. She thought she was maneuvering pieces on a board she owned. She did not realize she had just sat down across from a grand master. She wanted to play games with debt. Fine, I would buy the debt. She wanted to use the law as a weapon. Fine, I would buy the law. She wanted to destroy my daughter for profit. I watched a stray cat run across the lawn. By the time the sun came up, I would own Tyler Whitmore. And by the time the sun went down, Patricia Whitmore would wish she had never learned to spell the name Jefferson. I turned off the desk lamp. It was time to get to work. The air inside the tea room was thick with the smell of pulverized drywall and impending disaster. It was 7 in the morning, and Patricia Whitmore was already screaming. She stood in the center of the dining room, pointing a manicured finger at the east wall, the one that separated the shop from the vacant retail space next door. I walked in through the back, carrying my mop bucket like a shield. I stopped dead when I saw the crew. There were 3 of them. They were not professionals. They looked like they had been scraped off the sidewalk outside a hardware store, holding sledgehammers with no gloves and operating a concrete saw with no eye protection. "Tear it down," Patricia barked, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. "I want an open concept. We need to expand into the next unit for the VIP lounge." I set the bucket down. My stomach tightened. That wall was not cosmetic. I knew the blueprints of this building better than I knew the lines on my own face. That was a shear wall. It carried the load of the second-floor apartments and the main HVAC exchange. I walked over to her. "Patricia, you cannot cut that wall." She spun around, her eyes flashing with irritation. "Oh, look who it is. The janitor has an opinion. Go empty the trash, Caleb. The adults are working." I stood my ground. "I am telling you, that is a load-bearing structure. You need a structural engineer and a steel header to support the span. If you knock those studs out, the ceiling is going to come down." Patricia laughed. It was a cruel, high-pitched sound. "Listen to him. The man who cleans toilets thinks he knows architecture. You are hilarious. I do not need a permit to renovate my own business, and I certainly do not need advice from an uneducated old man who probably never finished high school." She turned back to the foreman, a man with a cigarette dangling from his lip. "Ignore him. He is senile. Just cut the hole. I want it done before the lunch rush." The foreman shrugged. He fired up the saw. The noise was deafening. Dust plumed into the air, coating the velvet furniture in a fine white powder. I stepped back, pulling Zoe away from the splash zone. "Get back," I whispered. The blade bit into the drywall. It sliced through the wood studs with a scream of tearing metal. I watched the ceiling joists above the cut. They sagged, just a fraction of an inch, but I saw it. The building groaned, a deep, low vibration that traveled through the floorboards. Then the saw hit something that was not wood. There was a metallic clang, followed instantly by a hiss that sounded like a jet engine. The foreman shouted and jumped back, dropping the saw. A jet of water exploded from the wall. It was not a trickle. It was a high-pressure geyser from the 2-inch main supply line. The water was black at first, filled with decades of sediment, before turning clear and freezing cold. It shot across the room with the force of a fire hose. "My Persian rugs!" Patricia screamed. The water hit the imported silk curtains. It blasted the antique tea sets off the display shelves. It soaked the velvet chairs. Within seconds, the floor was covered in an inch of water. The workers did not wait for a paycheck. They dropped their tools and bolted for the back door, slipping and sliding on the wet floor. They knew a catastrophe when they saw one. "Do something!" Patricia shrieked, climbing onto a chair to save her shoes. "Turn it off! You broke it! Fix it!" I stood there, my boots firmly planted in the rising flood. I crossed my arms. "I am just a janitor, Patricia," I shouted over the roar of the water. "I do not know anything about plumbing. Remember, I am uneducated." Tyler ran out of the office, splashing into the mess. "Mom, what is happening? Oh my God, the floors!" Patricia pointed a trembling, wet finger at me. "He did this. He distracted the workers. He sabotaged the pipe. I saw him looking at it earlier. He loosened it." I looked at her. The audacity was breathtaking. She was standing in the wreckage of her own arrogance, and her first instinct was to frame the black man in the corner. "You ordered an unlicensed demolition on a structural wall," I said, my voice calm and cold. "You bypassed the city permits. You ignored the safety warning, and you just ruptured the main line for the entire block." "This is my building," she hissed, her face twisted with hate. "I own the loan. I own the business. I can do whatever I want, and you are going to pay for this. I will sue you for every penny you do not have. I will tell the police you attacked the crew. Who are they going to believe, me or you?" She was right about one thing. The system usually believed the woman in the Chanel suit, but she was wrong about the most important detail. I reached into my pocket. I did not pull out a wrench. I pulled out my phone. "You just destroyed property belonging to Jefferson Holdings," I said. Patricia rolled her eyes. "So what? It is a shell company. I will write them a check. Money fixes everything." "Not this," I said. "You just caused catastrophic damage to a commercial asset. You violated the lease terms, and you compromised the structural integrity of a multi-million-dollar investment." "How would you know?" she sneered. "Did you mop their floors too?" I smiled. It was the smile of a man holding a royal flush. "You could say I know the owner," I said, intimately. Tyler looked at me. He looked at the water rising around his ankles. "Dad, stop playing games. Who is Jefferson Holdings?" I looked straight at Patricia. "I am," I said. She blinked. Water dripped from her nose. "What?" I tapped the screen of my phone. "I just sent a video of this entire incident to my legal team," I said, "including the part where you ordered the unlicensed work and admitted to bypassing permits. The building inspector is on his way. I called him 5 minutes ago." "You are lying," Patricia whispered, her face draining of color. "You are a broke old man." I took a step closer to her. My boots splashed in the water she had released. "I am the landlord, Patricia, and you just flooded my building." The silence that followed was louder than the rushing water. Patricia stared at me, her brain trying to reconcile the janitor with the tycoon. "Get out," I said. "Get out of my building before the roof collapses on your head." The ceiling creaked again, louder this time. A piece of wet drywall fell and smashed onto the table next to her. Patricia scrambled down from the chair. She grabbed Tyler's arm. "We are leaving. This is unsafe. He sabotaged it. We will sue." She dragged her son toward the door, her expensive heels ruined, her dignity soaking wet. I turned to Zoe. She was standing by the counter, dry and wide-eyed. "Grab your purse, baby," I said. "We are going to lunch." "But Dad," she stammered. "The water, the shop." I looked at the ruin of the Whitmore Tea Room. "Let it drown," I said. It was built on a lie anyway. I put my arm around her and walked her out into the sunlight. leaving the water to wash away the sins of the Whitmore family. The war was over. The massacre was just beginning. I stood on the sidewalk, watching the disaster unfold through the plate glass window. The water from the ruptured main line was still gushing, transforming the dining room into a murky swimming pool. The velvet chairs were floating. The expensive Persian rugs were sodden, heavy sponges, ruining the hardwood floors beneath them. Patricia Whitmore was pacing back and forth on the sidewalk, her shoes squelching with every step, screaming into her cell phone at her insurance agent, who I suspected was about to give her very bad news. Tyler was trying to salvage a box of soaking wet menus, looking like a rat escaping a sinking ship. Zoe stood next to me, shivering not from cold, but from shock. I took off my flannel jacket and draped it over her shoulders. She looked at the ruin of her dream, and I saw the light in her eyes flickering out. I needed to act fast. I needed to turn this chaos into a cage they could not escape. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I had saved under the name Mike. Mike Miller was the chief city inspector. We had served in the same unit 30 years ago, and I had helped him with the down payment on his first house when he came back from deployment. He was a good man, he was fair, and he absolutely hated people who cut corners. "Mike," I said when he answered, "it is Caleb. I am at the commercial property on 4th. You need to get down here. We have a structural breach and an active flood." "Is it bad?" Mike asked. "They cut a load-bearing wall with a concrete saw and hit the main," I said, "without a permit. I heard the sound of keys jingling on the other end. I am 5 minutes out." I hung up and waited. Patricia was still screaming, waving her arms at the empty street. She looked ridiculous, a wet hen trying to command the tide to stop coming in. 5 minutes later, a white city truck with flashing amber lights screeched to a halt in front of the tea room. Mike Miller stepped out. He was a mountain of a man wearing a high-visibility vest and a hard hat. He carried a clipboard like a weapon. He did not look at me. He walked straight toward the door, where water was now cascading over the threshold onto the sidewalk. Patricia intercepted him. She blocked his path, putting on her best haughty face despite the water dripping from her nose. "Excuse me," she said, her voice sharp. "Who called you? We did not call the city. This is a private matter. We have a plumber coming. You can leave." Mike looked down at her. He adjusted his glasses. "Ma'am, I received a report of a structural failure and unauthorized demolition. Step aside." "I am Patricia Whitmore," she announced, as if the name should make him genuflect. "My son owns this business. We are handling it. We do not need the city sniffing around." Mike ignored her. He stepped around her and splashed into the lobby. He looked at the hole in the wall where the water was still spraying. He looked at the sagging ceiling joists. He looked at the exposed wiring sparking near the puddles. He pulled a red tag out of his pocket. It was the death warrant for any business, the cease and desist order. He slapped the sticker onto the front glass. "This building is condemned until further notice," Mike boomed, his voice carrying over the sound of the water. "Everyone out. Now." Patricia ran after him, grabbing his arm. "You cannot do that. We have a grand opening today. The mayor's wife was just here. Do you know who I am connected to? I will have your badge. I will have your job." Mike stopped. He turned slowly to face her. He looked at her hand on his arm until she let go. "Ma'am, you just cut a shear wall in a multi-story building. You compromised the integrity of the entire block. You are lucky the second-floor apartments did not come down on your head. Now where is the permit for this work?" "Permit?" Patricia scoffed. "It was a minor renovation. We were just opening up the space." Mike made a note on his clipboard. "No permit, unlicensed demolition, major water damage, electrical hazards." He looked up. "That is a violation of City Code Section 402, Section 119, and Section 305. He ripped a pink sheet off his pad and handed it to her. Patricia took it. She looked at the number at the bottom. Her eyes bulged. $15,000, she shrieked. "This is robbery. I am not paying this." "That is just the initial fine for the violations," Mike said calmly. "You have 24 hours to shore up that wall with a steel header and restore the fire suppression system. If it is not done by tomorrow morning, the city will condemn the property permanently and bill you for the demolition of the building. And trust me, ma'am, that bill will be in the 6 figures. Patricia turned purple. She looked around for someone to blame. Her eyes landed on Tyler, who was cowering by the door. "Tyler, do something," she yelled. "Call your lawyer. Call the mayor. Fix this." Tyler looked at the inspector. He looked at the red tag. He looked at the fine. He shook his head. "Mom, we cannot fix this. We do not have the money. We spent everything on the decor." Patricia slapped the paper against his chest. "I do not care what we have. Find it." Then her eyes found me. I was standing by the curb with Zoe. Patricia marched over to us, her heels clicking angrily on the pavement. She ignored me and got right in Zoe's face. "This is your fault," she hissed. Zoe flinched. "My fault?" "Patricia, you ordered them to cut the wall. I told you not to. Dad told you not to." Patricia grabbed Zoe's arm, her fingers digging into the flesh. "Do not talk back to me, you ungrateful little brat. This is your shop. Your name is on the lease. That means this fine is your responsibility." She shoved the pink slip into Zoe's hand. $15,000, Patricia said, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You have until tomorrow morning. I do not care how you get it. Sell your car. Sell your kidney. Go stand on a street corner. But you get me that money, or I will make sure you spend the rest of your life paying me back from a prison cell. I will tell them you ordered the work. I will tell them you hired the crew. It is your word against mine, and I have the money to buy the truth." Zoe began to cry, great heaving sobs that shook her body. "I do not have it, Patricia. You know I do not have it. You took everything." Patricia sneered. "Then ask your daddy, the janitor. Maybe he has a stash of quarters under his mattress." She laughed, a cruel, broken sound. I felt the heat rising in my chest again. It was not the explosive rage from before. It was colder, heavier. It was the weight of a judge's gavel. I stepped forward. I placed my hand over Patricia's hand, where she was still gripping my daughter's arm. I squeezed, not enough to break bone, but enough to make her gasp and let go. "Enough," I said. Patricia looked at me, shocked. She rubbed her wrist. "Do not touch me, old man." I stepped between her and Zoe. I looked down at her. "You are done giving orders, Patricia." She laughed, but there was fear in it now. "Oh, really? And who is going to stop me?" "You. You are nothing. You are a spectator. This is business. This is extortion," I said, "and it ends now." Patricia glared at me. "You have no idea who you are dealing with. I will bury you. I will bury both of you." She turned to Tyler. "Get the car. We are leaving. I need to call my broker." Tyler ran to get the car. Patricia looked at Zoe one last time. "Tomorrow, Zoe. 24 hours. Or I ruin you." She got into the car and they peeled away, leaving us standing in the wreckage. Mike walked over to us. He tipped his hard hat to me. "Sorry about the mess, Caleb," he said softly. "I did what I could. I hit her with the maximum." "Thanks, Mike," I said. "I appreciate it." "Is the building actually unsafe?" Mike asked, dropping his voice. I shook my head. "The beam above that wall is reinforced steel. I put it in myself 10 years ago. It held. The drywall just hit it, but she does not know that." Mike smiled. "I figured. The 24-hour notice is standard procedure, but I flagged it as high priority. It will keep her sweating." "You are a good man, Mike." I watched him drive away. Then I turned to Zoe. She was staring at the fine in her hand, trembling. "Dad, what do we do?" she whispered. $15,000. I cannot pay this." I took the paper from her hand. I folded it neatly and put it in my pocket. "You are not going to pay it, Zoe." "But she said—" "I know what she said," I interrupted. "But she forgot one thing." "What?" Zoe asked. "She forgot to ask who owns the building," I said. I looked at the tea room. The water had stopped gushing, but the damage was done. The facade was ruined. The dream was dead. But from the ashes, something else was about to rise. "Come on," I said. "We have a meeting." "With who?" Zoe asked. "With the landlord," I said. I walked her to my truck. As we drove away, I saw a black sedan pull up to the curb. A man in a suit got out. It was Stone. He was carrying a briefcase. He looked at the condemned sign, nodded once, and walked toward the entrance of the building next door. The one I bought last night. The trap was set. The bait was taken. Now, it was time to snap the jaws shut. I drove my daughter away from the wreckage of her dream, with the silence of the grave filling the cab of my truck. Zoe was curled against the passenger door, staring out the window at the passing city blocks. She was not crying anymore, which worried me more than the tears. She had entered that state of shock, where the brain simply refuses to process any more trauma. She was holding the pink citation from the city inspector like it was a live grenade waiting to go off. I reached over and gently took the paper from her hand. I crumpled it into a ball and tossed it onto the dashboard. "It is over, Zoe," I said, my voice low and steady. "You are not going back there. You are not paying that fine. And you are definitely not paying Patricia Whitmore a single dime." Zoe looked at me, her eyes hollow. "Dad, you do not understand. They have lawyers. They have contracts. Tyler said if I walk away, they will sue me for abandonment of the lease. They will garnish my wages for the rest of my life. I signed everything. I am trapped." I turned the truck onto a quiet side street lined with oak trees and old brick buildings. I pulled up to the curb in front of a 3-story structure that used to be a bank. It had tall stone columns and heavy brass doors. It was solid. It was immovable, just like me. "You are not trapped," I said, killing the engine. "You were trapped because you were playing by their rules in a game they rigged, but the game just changed." I opened my door and stepped out. Zoe followed me, looking up at the imposing building. "Why are we here?" she asked. "Because I have a meeting," I said. "And so do you." I walked to the front door. It was locked. I did not knock. I pulled a set of keys from my pocket, selected the heavy brass master key, and slid it into the lock. The tumblers clicked with a satisfying weight. I pushed the door open and ushered Zoe inside. The interior was cool and smelled of old paper and marble. The lobby was empty, stripped of the teller's counters, leaving a vast open space with a mosaic floor. Standing in the center of the room, looking at a tablet, was a man in a charcoal suit that cost more than Tyler's car. He was bald, built like a linebacker, and had eyes that missed nothing. This was Stone, my attorney, my fixer, the man who buried the bodies, legally speaking. He looked up as we entered. He did not smile. He just nodded. "Mr. Jefferson," Stone said, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "Stone," I said. "This is my daughter, Zoe." Stone closed the distance and offered a hand to Zoe. She took it hesitantly, looking at me for an explanation. "It is a pleasure to meet you, Ms. Jefferson," Stone said. "Your father has told me a great deal about your situation. I have prepared the package as requested." He walked over to a portable table set up near the window, where a thick leather briefcase sat. He snapped the latches open and pulled out a stack of documents bound in blue legal covers. "The courier is en route to the Whitmore residence as we speak," Stone said, glancing at his watch. "Estimated delivery is 20 minutes. "What is happening?" Zoe asked, her voice trembling. "Who are you?" "I am the general counsel for Jefferson Holdings," Stone said. "And as of 9 o'clock this morning, Jefferson Holdings is the sole owner of the property located at 4th and Main, the building formerly known as the Whitmore Tea Room." Zoe looked at me, her mouth falling open. "Dad, what is he talking about? You own the building." I put my hand on her shoulder. "I have owned it for months, honey. I bought it through a shell company so you would feel independent. I wanted you to succeed on your own, but when I saw what they were doing to you, I decided it was time to step out of the shadows." I turned to Stone. "Show her." Stone handed Zoe a document. It was a formal eviction notice, but it was not just an eviction. It was a nuclear bomb, wrapped in legal stationery. "It is a notice of immediate termination of lease for cause," Stone explained, citing unauthorized structural modifications, destruction of property, violation of safety codes, and conducting illegal business practices on the premises. "We are also filing a civil suit for damages to the structural integrity of the building. The claim is for $200,000. Zoe stared at the paper. $200,000. Patricia does not have that kind of money. She spent everything on the renovation. "I know," I said, coldness seeping into my voice. "That is the point. When she cannot pay, we will place a lien on her personal assets. Her house, her car, her bank accounts. We are going to strip her clean." Stone handed me another document. "And this is for Mr. Whitmore." I looked at it. It was a notification that the gambling debt owed to one Vincent Santoro had been purchased by a private equity firm. The firm was demanding immediate payment in full, or they would seek a judgment. The firm was me. "They are at Patricia's house right now," I said, visualizing the scene. "They ran home to hide, to regroup, to figure out how to blame this on you. They think they are safe. They think the worst thing they have to deal with is a city fine. I looked at my watch. Right about now, the doorbell is ringing. Across town, in the manicured suburbs where the lawns were perfect and the secrets were dirty, Patricia Whitmore was indeed pacing her living room. She had a glass of scotch in one hand and her phone in the other. Her shoes were ruined, her hair was a mess, and her rage was vibrating off her like heat waves. Tyler was sitting on the white sofa, his head in his hands. He was still wet from the burst pipe. He looked small, defeated. "I cannot believe that, Inspector," Patricia ranted, taking a gulp of scotch. "Who does he think he is? I will call the mayor. I will call the governor. I will have his license revoked. And that old man, that janitor, did you see him? Standing there like he mattered? I am going to sue him for harassment. I will say he distracted the workers. I will say he hit the pipe with a wrench." Tyler looked up. "Mom, stop." The workers ran away. There are no witnesses, and the inspector saw the cut in the wall. We cannot lie our way out of a structural violation. "Watch me," Patricia hissed. "I have been lying my way out of trouble since before you were born. We just need a scapegoat, and we have one. Zoe. It is her lease, her signature. We throw her to the wolves. We tell the landlord she went rogue. We tell the bank she authorized the work. We wash our hands of it." The doorbell rang. It was a sharp, insistent sound. Patricia jumped. She smoothed her hair and walked to the door, composing her face into a mask of righteous indignation. She expected a neighbor complaining about the noise, or maybe the police. She was ready to charm or bully whoever it was. She pulled the door open. Standing on the porch was a process server. He was a large man with a bored expression and a stack of thick envelopes in his hand. "Patricia Whitmore," he asked. She lifted her chin. "Yes. Who are you?" "You have been served," he said, thrusting the envelopes into her chest. "And Tyler Whitmore, is he present?" "I am here," Tyler called out, walking up behind his mother. The man handed a second stack to Tyler. "Consider yourself served. Have a nice day." He turned and walked away before Patricia could say a word. She slammed the door shut. She looked at the heavy packet in her hands. The return address was embossed in silver ink. "Jefferson Holdings," she read aloud. She let out a harsh, incredulous laugh. "Who on earth is Jefferson Holdings? Is this the landlord? Finally. I have been trying to get a hold of the owner for months to complain about the plumbing." She ripped the envelope open. She pulled out the documents. Her eyes scanned the first page. Her face turned red, then purple. "They are suing us," she shrieked. "They are terminating the lease immediately. They want $200,000 for damages." She threw the papers onto the coffee table. The audacity, the absolute nerve. "Do they know who I am? I will countersue. I will claim negligence. I will say the building was already falling apart. I will bury them in paperwork until they beg me to settle." Tyler was opening his own envelope. His hands were shaking so hard the paper rattled. He was not looking at the lawsuit. He was looking at a cover letter attached to the front of the packet. "Mom," he whispered. Patricia ignored him. She was pacing again, fueled by the fresh conflict. "I need my lawyer. I need to call Edwards. We are going to destroy this Jefferson Holdings. We are going to take their building. I will own the whole block by the time I am done with them." "Mom, listen to me," Tyler said, his voice rising in pitch. "What?" Patricia snapped, spinning around. "Stop whining, Tyler. We are at war. Read the document. Who is the signatory? Who is the CEO of this company? I want a name. I want to know exactly who I am going to destroy." Tyler looked at her. His face was gray. He looked like he was going to be sick. He held the paper out with a trembling hand. He pointed to the bottom of the page, where a bold black signature sat above a printed name. He swallowed hard. "It says here," Tyler stammered, "the CEO of Jefferson Holdings, the owner of the building, the man suing us." "Spit it out," Patricia yelled. "Who is it?" "It is Caleb," Tyler whispered. Patricia froze. She blinked. "Caleb. Caleb who?" "Caleb Jefferson," Tyler said, his voice cracking. "Zoe's dad." The room went silent. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Patricia stared at her son. Her brain refused to accept the information. It rejected it like a bad organ transplant. "That is impossible," she said slowly. "Caleb is a janitor. He drives a truck that is held together with duct tape. He washes dishes. He cleans toilets. Tyler shook his head. He dropped the paper on the table next to his mother's scotch. Look at the signature, Mom. It is his handwriting. I have seen it on birthday cards. And look at the address for the holding company. It matches the P.O. box Zoe uses for her mail. Patricia snatched the paper. She brought it close to her face. She read the name. Caleb Jefferson, Chairman and CEO, Jefferson Holdings. She lowered the paper. Her hands went limp. The glass of scotch slipped from her fingers and crashed onto the floor, splashing amber liquid over her bare feet and the legal documents. She did not even flinch. He owns the building, she whispered, the whole time. He was standing there washing dishes in a building he owns. She looked at Tyler. Her eyes were wide, filled with a dawning, terrible realization. He heard us, she said. He was in the kitchen. He heard everything. Tyler nodded. He sank onto the sofa. He knows about the loan. He knows about the plan to steal the shop. He knows about Vinny. Patricia staggered back. She hit the wall and slid down it until she was sitting on the floor amidst the broken glass. He is not a janitor, she breathed. No, Tyler said, burying his face in his hands. He is a millionaire. Patricia let out a scream. It was a primal sound of rage and disbelief. It started low in her throat and rose to a shriek that shattered the quiet of the suburban afternoon. No, she howled, pounding her fists against the floor. It is a trick. It is a lie. He cannot be rich. He is nobody. He is trash. But the paper on the table did not lie. The bold, black signature stared up at her, mocking her. The man she had humiliated, the man she had treated like a servant, the man she had tried to destroy, held the keys to her kingdom. And he had just locked the gates. Back in the old bank building, I watched Zoe read the same document. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "You did this for me?" she asked. "I did it for us," I said. I pulled her into a hug. Stone cleared his throat. "The courier confirmed delivery," he said. "They have the package." "Good," I said, looking out the window at the tea room across the street. The condemned sign was bright red in the afternoon sun. "Now," I said, "send the invite." "Invite?" Zoe asked, pulling away. "Yes," I said. "We are having a board meeting tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., here." I looked at Stone. "Summon them," I said. "Tell them the landlord wants to discuss a settlement. Tell them if they do not show up, we file criminal charges for fraud by noon." Stone smiled, a shark sensing blood in the water. "With pleasure, Mr. Jefferson." I turned back to the window. I could imagine the scene in Patricia's living room, the panic, the screaming, the blame. "Sleep well, Patricia," I whispered. "You are going to need your rest. Tomorrow, you find out what it really costs to treat people like dirt." I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of the executive suite on the 12th floor of the Jefferson Holdings building. From this height, the people on the street looked like insects, scurrying about their inconsequential lives. I watched a black sedan pull up to the curb below. It was not a limousine. It was a ride-share service. Patricia Whitmore's Mercedes was likely already on a flatbed truck, headed to the impound lot, or parked in her driveway with a boot on the wheel. She stepped out of the back seat, smoothing her skirt and adjusting her hair. Even from this distance, I could see the tension in her shoulders. Tyler scrambled out after her, looking like a man walking to the gallows. And then Zoe. My daughter stepped out last. She looked up at the building, shielding her eyes from the sun. She knew what was waiting for her up here, but she still looked terrified. I turned away from the window and walked to the head of the conference table. I adjusted the cuffs of my suit. It was a bespoke, Italian-cut charcoal gray wool with a silk lining. It cost $4,000. The watch on my wrist was a Patek Philippe, worth more than the entire renovation budget Patricia had stolen. I had not worn these things in a decade. I preferred flannel and denim. I preferred the anonymity of the working class. But today was not about comfort. Today was about theater. Today I needed to be the monster they feared, so I could destroy the monsters they were. I sat down in the high-backed leather chair and swiveled it around so my back was facing the door. I placed the dossier on the polished mahogany table in front of me. I waited. Down in the lobby, the situation was unfolding exactly as I anticipated. I had the security feed playing on a tablet in front of me. Patricia marched up to the front desk as if she owned the building. The receptionist, a young woman named Sarah, who was working on her master's degree, looked up with a polite smile. "Name, please," Sarah asked. Patricia slammed her hand on the marble counter. "You know my name. We are here to see the owner, this Jefferson person, and tell him he is lucky I even showed up after the stunt he pulled yesterday." "I do not have a Jefferson on the schedule, ma'am," Sarah said, her voice calm. "I have a meeting for the Whitmore party in the main boardroom with the chairman." "The chairman?" Patricia scoffed. "Oh, how pretentious. Fine, take us to him, and get me a coffee, black. And make sure it is hot this time, unlike the swill you people usually serve." "There is coffee service in the waiting room," Sarah said, gesturing to the side. "Please have a seat. Mr. Stone will come for you when they are ready." "I am not waiting," Patricia snapped. "I am Patricia Whitmore. My time is money. Call him. Tell him I am coming up." Sarah did not flinch. She picked up the phone and dialed my direct line. "Sir, the Whitmore party is here," Sarah said. "The woman is demanding immediate access." "Let her wait," I said into the speakerphone. 10 minutes. Let her stew." "Understood," Sarah said, hanging up. She looked at Patricia. "The chairman is finishing a call. Please take a seat." Patricia huffed and marched to the waiting area. She sat on the edge of the sofa, refusing to relax. She pulled out her phone and started typing furiously, probably venting to her circle of fake friends about the indignity of waiting in a lobby. Tyler sat next to her, staring at the floor, his leg bouncing nervously. Zoe stood by the window, looking out at the city, detached from them both. I watched them for exactly 10 minutes. I watched Patricia berate a cleaning lady who walked by with a cart. I watched Tyler wipe sweat from his forehead every 30 seconds. I watched the fear and the arrogance warring in Patricia's eyes. She still thought she could talk her way out of this. She still thought this was a negotiation. She had no idea she was walking into an execution. At 9:15, the elevator doors opened, and Stone stepped out into the lobby. He looked immense in his suit, his face a mask of stone. He did not introduce himself. He just looked at them. "Follow me," Stone said. Patricia stood up, adjusting her jacket. "About time. You people have no sense of urgency." She tried to walk past Stone to the elevator, but he blocked her path with a subtle shift of his weight. "Badge," Stone said, pointing to the security turnstile. "Visitor pass. You need to sign in." "I am not signing anything," Patricia said. "I am here to settle a lawsuit." "No pass, no entry," Stone said, his voice flat. Patricia glared at him, but she signed the digital log. Tyler signed. Zoe signed. Stone tapped his card and the gates opened. He led them into the private elevator that went straight to the penthouse suite. I spun my chair back around to face the window as the elevator chime signaled their arrival on my floor. I heard the heavy oak doors of the boardroom open. I heard the click of Patricia's heels on the marble floor. "Wow," Tyler whispered. The boardroom was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the skyline. A 30-foot table made of reclaimed walnut. Art on the walls that cost 6 figures. It smelled of leather and money. "Where is he?" Patricia demanded, her voice echoing in the large room. "Where is this landlord? I want to look him in the eye and tell him exactly what I think of his frivolous lawsuit." "Please take a seat," Stone said, gesturing to the 3 chairs positioned on the opposite side of the table. Patricia sat in the center chair. Tyler sat to her right. Zoe sat to her left, leaving a gap between her and her mother-in-law. "I do not have all day," Patricia said, tapping her fingers on the table. "Bring him out. I assume he is hiding in the back, afraid to face me." I smiled. It was time. I spun the chair around slowly. I faced them. I rested my elbows on the arms of the chair and steepled my fingers. I did not say a word. I just looked at her. Patricia's mouth fell open. Her eyes went wide. She blinked once, twice, 3 times, trying to process the image before her. The janitor, the old man in the dirty flannel shirt and work boots, the man she had ordered to wash dishes, the man she had called uneducated and useless. He was sitting in the chairman's seat, wearing a suit that she could never afford, looking at her with the cold indifference of a god. Tyler let out a small, strangled sound like a dying animal. He slumped in his chair, his face turning the color of ash. He knew. He had seen the signature, but seeing the man in the flesh was different. The The reality of his doom was sitting 10 feet away. Zoe gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. "Dad," she whispered. Patricia finally found her voice. It was a screech. "You," she shouted, standing up and pointing a trembling finger at me. "What are you doing here? How did you get in here? Security! Someone call security! This man has broken in! He is deranged!" I did not move. I did not blink. "Sit down, Patricia," I said. My voice was calm, low and resonant. It carried across the room without effort. She froze. The authority in my voice was undeniable. It was not the voice of a servant. It was the voice of the master. I said, "Sit down." Patricia sank back into her chair, her legs giving out. "This is a joke," she stammered. "This is some kind of sick joke. You are a janitor. You drive a truck. You clean toilets." I leaned forward. "I drive a truck because I like it," I said. "I clean toilets because, unlike you, I am not afraid of hard work. And I am sitting in this chair because I own it. I own this table. I own this building. I own the building across the street. And as of yesterday, Patricia, I own you." Patricia shook her head, denial, her only defense. "No, it is not possible. You are lying. You are a fraud. Tyler, tell him. Tell him he is lying." Tyler did not speak. He was staring at the table, unable to lift his head. "Tyler, look at me," I commanded. Tyler slowly raised his eyes. He looked like a child caught standing over a broken corpse. "Tell your mother who I am," I said. Tyler swallowed. His voice was a whisper. "He is Caleb Jefferson Mom. He is the CEO. I looked him up last night. He owns Jefferson Holdings. He owns everything." Patricia turned to her son, her face twisting in horror. "You knew. You knew, and you let me walk in here and make a fool of myself." "I found out yesterday," Tyler cried, "when the papers came." Patricia looked back at me. Her arrogance was cracking, revealing the fear underneath, but she tried to patch it up with bluster. "Fine," she said, straightening her jacket. "So you have money. Congratulations. You hid it well. But that does not change the facts. We have a contract. Your daughter owes me money, and you cannot intimidate me with a fancy suit. I will countersue you for harassment. I will tell the press you deceived us." I laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. "Deceived you?" I asked. "I never lied to you, Patricia. I told you I was Zoe's father. That is the only title that matters. You assumed the rest because you are a bigot and a snob. You looked at my skin and my clothes, and you decided I was beneath you. That is your failure, not my deception." I picked up the black folder from the table. "But we are not here to talk about my wardrobe," I said. "We are here to talk about debt." I slid the folder across the polished wood. It spun and came to a stop right in front of Zoe. "Open it, Zoe," I said softly. Zoe looked at me, her hands trembling. "Dad, what is this?" "It is the truth, baby," I said. "It is the reason why your husband forced you to sign that loan. It is the reason why your mother-in-law was so desperate to take your shop. It is the reason why your life has been a living hell for the last 6 months." Zoe opened the folder. The first photograph was an 8x10 glossy print. It showed Tyler sitting at a poker table in a basement room filled with smoke. He looked manic, sweating chips piled in front of him. The second photograph showed Tyler walking into the St. Regis Hotel. His arm was around a woman, a blonde woman in a red dress. He was laughing. His hand was resting on her lower back in a way that no married man should touch another woman. The third photograph showed them kissing in the elevator. The fourth document was a copy of the gambling ledger I had purchased from Vinny. It showed the dates, the amounts, and the total. $80,000. Zoe stared at the photos. She did not scream. She did not cry. She went very still. She picked up the ledger. Her eyes scanned the columns of numbers. "Gambling," she whispered. Her voice was flat, dead. I looked at Tyler. He was weeping now, silent tears running down his face. "Tell her, Tyler," I said. "Tell her what you did." Tyler sobbed. "I am sorry, Zoe. I got in deep. I thought I could win it back. Vinny said he would hurt me. He said he would hurt you. Mom said she would help me if I got the shop. She said we could use the business credit to pay off the debt." Patricia slammed her hand on the table. "Shut up, Tyler." "Shut up, you idiot." I looked at Patricia. "You knew," I said. "You knew he was gambling. You knew he was cheating on my daughter. And instead of getting him help, instead of telling Zoe the truth, You used it. You used his weakness to blackmail him into robbing his own wife. You orchestrated a hostile takeover of my daughter's business to cover your son's mistakes. Patricia's face was purple. It was business, she hissed. It was asset protection. We were keeping the money in the family. You destroyed her, I said, my voice rising. You broke her spirit. You humiliated her. You made her scrub floors to pay for a debt her husband racked up with a bookie and a mistress. Zoe looked up from the photos. Her eyes were dry, but they were burning with a fire I had not seen in a long time. She looked at Tyler. You cheated on me, she said. Her voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. While I was working double shifts, while I was crying myself to sleep because I thought I was failing, you were at a hotel with her. Tyler reached for her hand across the table. Zoe, please. It meant nothing. I was stressed. I love you. Zoe pulled her hand back as if he were a snake. Do not touch me, she said. I leaned back in my chair. That debt, Zoe, I said, pointing to the ledger. It is not owed to Vinny anymore. I bought it. I own his debt. I own his markers. And I own the judgment. I looked at Tyler. You owe me $80,000, Tyler. Payable immediately. Tyler turned to his mother. Mom, pay him. Write him a check, please. Patricia looked at me with pure hatred. I am not paying you a dime. This is entrapment. I pulled another document from my stack. This is a forensic accounting of your finances, Patricia, I said. You are over-leveraged. Your house has a second mortgage. Your credit cards are maxed out. You spent the last of your liquid cash on the renovation of the tea room. You are broke, Patricia. You were banking on the tea room profits to save you from bankruptcy. Patricia went pale. Her mouth worked, but no sound came out. I stood up. So here is how this is going to work, I said. I am foreclosing on the debt. I am placing a lien on your house, Patricia, and on yours, Tyler. I am suing you both for fraud, embezzlement, and breach of contract. I looked at Zoe, and my daughter is filing for divorce. Today, Zoe stood up. She gathered the photos and the ledger. She looked at Tyler one last time. You are disgusting, she said. She turned to Patricia. And you, she said, her voice shaking with rage. You are evil. You wanted a servant. Well, you lost one. And you lost your son because he is going to jail. Zoe turned to me. Her eyes were fierce. Let's go, Dad. I am done here. I walked around the table. I stood next to my daughter. I looked at the two people who had tried to break her. They looked small. They looked pathetic. Get out of my building, I said. You have 5 minutes. After that, I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. I turned my back on them and walked my daughter to the door. Behind us, I heard Tyler sobbing and Patricia screaming at him, but their voices sounded distant, like ghosts fading into the mist. We walked out of the boardroom and into the light, leaving the darkness behind us where it belonged. Patricia wiped the sweat from her upper lip with a trembling hand, but she was not done fighting yet. She was a creature of denial, a woman who had spent decades convincing herself that her lies were truth and her greed was benevolence. She straightened her spine against the back of the leather chair and looked at me with eyes that were wet but still defiant. You do not understand business, Caleb, she said, her voice shaking but gaining strength with every word. I did not steal anything. I invested. I stepped in when Zoe was failing. I put my own money into the renovations. I hired the staff. I marketed the brand. I saved this business from your daughter's incompetence. I am not a thief. I am a partner, a silent partner who has done all the heavy lifting. She looked at Zoe, who was sitting quietly next to me, clutching the folder of evidence. Tell him, Zoe, she pleaded. Tell him how overwhelmed you were. Tell him how I helped you pick out the curtains. Tell him I was trying to build a legacy for the family, for Tyler, for our future grandchildren. It was a masterful performance. She was trying to rewrite history in real time. She was trying to frame her hostile takeover as an act of charity. I looked at Stone. He was sitting perfectly still, his hands folded on top of a thick stack of documents. He looked bored. He had seen this kind of desperation 1,000 times before. Mr. Stone, I said, please explain the concept of unauthorized tenancy to Mrs. Whitmore. Stone nodded. He opened the file in front of him. He pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was the commercial lease agreement I had drawn up for Zoe months ago. Mrs. Whitmore, Stone began, his voice dry and precise. This is the lease for the property at 4th and Main. It lists the tenant as Zoe Jefferson. Clause 14, paragraph B states clearly that the lease is non-transferable without the express written consent of the landlord. That would be Jefferson Holdings. Patricia scoffed. So what? It is a technicality. We were going to transfer the paperwork on Monday. Stone ignored her. Because the lease was never transferred, and because you never received written consent to operate on the premises, your presence in the building for the last 3 months constitutes illegal trespassing. Furthermore, any business conducted on the premises during that time is considered an unauthorized use of the asset. He pulled out a spreadsheet. According to the point-of-sale records we recovered from the cloud server, you generated $60,000 in revenue over the last 90 days. Patricia's eyes lit up. See? She exclaimed. $60,000. I made that money. I generated that profit. That proves I am a good businesswoman. That money belongs to me. It is my return on investment. Stone looked at her over the rim of his glasses. Actually, Mrs. Whitmore, it does not. Under the terms of the lease and city statutes regarding unauthorized commercial activity, all revenue generated during a period of illegal tenancy is subject to forfeiture to the leaseholder as compensation for damages and unauthorized use. He slid the spreadsheet across the table toward Zoe. That $60,000 belongs to Ms. Jefferson, Stone said. You were working for her, Mrs. Whitmore. You just did not know it. You managed the staff. You bought the inventory. You ran the daily operations. And every single dime you collected now legally belongs to the woman you forced to scrub the floors. Patricia stood up so fast her chair tipped over backward and crashed onto the floor. No, she screamed. That is my money. I earned it. I need that money. You cannot take it. I leaned forward. We are not taking it, Patricia, I said. We are recovering it. You forced my daughter to work for free. You stole her wages. You stole her tips. Consider this back pay with interest. Patricia looked at Tyler. Do something, she shrieked. They are robbing us. Tyler did not move. He was staring at the table, broken. He knew it was over. But we are not done yet, I said. I opened the bottom drawer of the conference table. I pulled out a thick, heavy file bound in red string. It hit the table with a thud that made everyone jump. Patricia looked at the file. She looked at me. The color drained from her face, leaving her skin gray and pasty. What is that? She whispered. This, I said, resting my hand on the cover, is your life, Patricia. I untied the string. I opened the file. When my team looked into your finances, we found something interesting, I said. You live in a beautiful house in the Heights, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, a pool. It is valued at $800,000. Patricia swallowed hard. It is my home. I have lived there for 20 years. Yes, I said, but you do not own it. Not really. You refinanced it 5 years ago to pay for Tyler's college and your husband's failed business ventures. You took out a second mortgage last year to maintain your lifestyle after the market dipped. And 3 months ago, you took out a high-interest bridge loan against the equity to pay for the renovation of the tea room. Patricia was trembling now. Her hands were gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles were white. How do you know that? She asked, her voice barely audible. That is private financial information. It is public record when you stop paying, I said. You missed your last 3 mortgage payments, Patricia. You were banking everything on the tea room opening. You needed that revenue to cover the balloon payment on the bridge loan. You were robbing Peter to pay Paul, but Paul is tired of waiting. I pulled a document from the file. It was a transfer of deed assignment. The bank was getting ready to foreclose, I said. They packaged your debt as a distressed asset. They were going to sell it to a collection agency for pennies on the dollar. I paused, letting the silence stretch out. I wanted her to feel the weight of the air in the room. I bought it, I said. Patricia's knees gave out. She slumped against the table. You bought my mortgage. I bought everything, I said. The first mortgage, the second mortgage, the bridge loan. I own the paper on your house, Patricia. I own the roof over your head. I own the ground under your feet. I slid the document across the table. It stopped next to the picture of Tyler gambling. I am your creditor now, I said. And unlike the bank, I do not negotiate. I do not offer grace periods. I do not care about your sob stories. I looked her dead in the eye. You owe me $200,000 in past due payments, penalties and interest, I said. And because the bridge loan had an acceleration clause triggered by the failure of the business collateral, which was the tea room, the full amount is due immediately. $200,000, Patricia whispered. I do not have it. You know I do not have it. I checked my watch. It is 10 a.m., I said. You have 30 days to pay the full balance of $200,000. If the money is not in my account by 5 p.m. on the 30th day, I will foreclose. I will take the house. I will evict you, and I will put you on the street. Patricia looked at Tyler. She looked at Zoe. She looked at the luxury of the boardroom surrounding her. The reality of her situation crashed down on her like a collapsing building. She was not just broke, she was destitute. She was homeless, and the man holding the eviction notice was the man she had called a servant. She made a sound like a choking bird. Her hand went to her chest. She gasped for air, her eyes rolling back in her head. Her legs buckled completely and she slid down the side of the table, collapsing onto the marble floor in a heap of expensive fabric and ruined pride. Mom, Tyler shouted, jumping up. He knelt beside her. She was breathing shallowly, her eyelids fluttering. She is having a heart attack, Tyler yelled, looking up at me with panic. Call 911. Help her. I did not move. I stayed in my chair. I watched her. I had seen men take shrapnel in the shoulder and keep walking. I knew what shock looked like, and I knew what bad acting looked like. She is not having a heart attack, I said calmly. She is having a reality check. Tyler slapped her cheeks lightly. Mom, wake up. Patricia let out a low moan, but she did not open her eyes. She was committed to the bit. She thought if she played the victim, if she feigned a medical emergency, she could delay the inevitable. She thought she could gain sympathy. She was wrong. I pressed the intercom button on the conference phone. Security, I said. Yes, Mr. Jefferson, the voice of the head of security crackled back. We have a situation in the boardroom, I said. I have a trespasser who is refusing to leave. She appears to have fainted. Please send a team up here to remove her. Remove her, Tyler shouted. She needs an ambulance. I looked at Tyler. If she needs an ambulance, you can call one from the sidewalk. I am not running a hospital. The doors to the boardroom burst open. 3 uniformed security guards marched in. They were big men, professionals who did not ask questions. Get them out, I said, pointing at the heap on the floor. 2 guards moved toward Patricia. They did not. Be gentle. They grabbed her by the arms and hoisted her up. Patricia's eyes snapped open. The miracle of healing. Let me go, she shrieked, kicking her legs. You cannot touch me. This is assault. I thought you were unconscious, I said dryly. I am sick, she yelled, trying to twist away from the guards. I am ill. You are killing me. Take her out, I said. And him too. The 3rd guard grabbed Tyler by the arm. Tyler tried to pull away, but he was no match for the muscle. Zoe Tyler screamed, looking back at his wife. Do something. He is your father. Stop him. Zoe sat at the table. She did not look at him. She was looking at the ledger of his gambling debts. She turned the page calmly. Goodbye, Tyler, she said. The guards dragged them toward the door. Patricia was screaming curses now, her facade of elegance completely gone. She sounded like a sailor. She called me every name in the book. She threatened to sue. She threatened to burn the building down. I watched them go. Just before they reached the door, I called out, Patricia! The guard stopped. Patricia panted, her hair wild, her face red. She looked back at me, hate burning in her eyes. 30 days, I said, holding up one finger. Start packing. The guards hauled them out into the hallway. The heavy oak doors slammed shut, cutting off her screams. Silence returned to the boardroom. The air conditioning hummed. The city outside the window continued to churn indifferent to the destruction of the Whitmore dynasty. I looked at Zoe. She was still staring at the ledger, but her shoulders were shaking. I stood up and walked over to her. I put my hand on her back. Are you okay, baby? I asked. She took a deep breath and closed the ledger. She looked up at me. Her eyes were clear. I felt sorry for her, she said softly. For a second when she fell, I felt sorry for her. That makes you a good person, Zoe, I said. Better than them. But then I remembered she looked at the empty chair where Patricia had been sitting. I remembered her laughing while I scrubbed the floor. I remembered her telling me I was worthless. And I realized she wasn't fainting because she was sick. She was fainting because she was losing. I nodded. Exactly. Zoe stood up. She smoothed her dress. I want my shop back, Dad, she said. I smiled. It is yours. It always was. But I want to change the name, she said. No more Tea Room. No more Whitmore. What do you want to call it? I asked. She looked at me, a small smile touching her lips. Caleb's Place, she said. I laughed, a real laugh that felt good in my chest. No, honey, it is your place. Call it Zoe's. Just make sure the coffee is hot. We walked to the window and looked down. On the sidewalk below, we saw the guards deposit Patricia and Tyler onto the concrete. Patricia stumbled and fell. Tyler tried to help her up, and she shoved him away. They stood there arguing in front of the building they had tried to steal, surrounded by the ruins of their own greed. It was a beautiful day. The heavy oak doors of the boardroom had barely clicked shut when they shuddered violently. There was a scuffle outside, a shout of surprise from one of the guards, and then the doors burst open again. Tyler Whitmore stumbled back into the room. He had broken free from the security team, leaving his mother screaming in the hallway. His expensive jacket was torn at the shoulder, his tie was askew, and his hair was wild. He did not look at me. He did not look at Stone. He only had eyes for Zoe. He ran across the marble floor, sliding on his knees like a penitent sinner approaching an altar. He collided with Zoe's chair, grabbing the armrest to steady himself. He was weeping, open-mouthed, ugly sobs that racked his entire body. He reached out and wrapped his arms around Zoe's legs, burying his face in the fabric of her dress. "Zoe, please," he wailed, his voice muffled and wet. "You cannot let them do this. You cannot let him ruin me. I am your husband. We made vows, for better or for worse. Remember." I stood up to intervene, to kick him away from my daughter, but Zoe held up a hand. She did not look at me. She looked down at the man clutching her ankles. Her face was unreadable, a mask of porcelain. I sat back down. This was her moment. She needed to be the one to cut the cord. Tyler looked up at her, his eyes bloodshot and desperate. "It was not me, Zoe," he pleaded. "It was my mother. You know how she is. She forced me. She controlled everything. She made me take the loan. She made me hide the money. I tried to stop her, but she threatened to cut me off. She said she would disown me. I did it for us, Zoe. I wanted us to have the inheritance. I wanted to secure our future." He was rewriting history in real time, painting himself as a victim of his mother's ambition rather than a willing accomplice. He was trying to use his own weakness as a shield. Zoe slowly peeled his fingers off her legs one by one. She pushed her chair back and stood up. Tyler tried to follow her, shuffling on his knees, but she stepped away, putting the corner of the heavy table between them. She reached out and picked up the black folder I had slid across the table earlier, the dossier of his betrayal. She opened it. Her eyes fell on the photographs of Tyler and the blonde woman, the mistress. She picked up one of the photos. It was time-stamped 3 months ago. 3 months ago, Zoe said softly, her voice trembling not with sadness but with a rising fury. 3 months ago I was on my hands and knees in the kitchen, scrubbing grease off the floor because the dishwasher broke, and your mother refused to pay for a repairman. I called you Tyler. I called you crying because my hands were bleeding, and I was so tired I could not see straight. She looked at the photo, then at Tyler. "You told me you were at the office," she said. "You said you were working late to fix the permits. You said you were doing it for me." Tyler swallowed hard. "Zoe, I was stressed. It was a mistake. It meant nothing." Zoe dropped the photo. It fluttered to the table, landing face up. "It meant nothing," she repeated. She picked up another photo. This one showed Tyler at the poker table, laughing with a stack of chips in front of him. "The date was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago," Zoe said. 2 weeks ago, your mother made me wear a maid uniform to serve her friends. She spilled hot tea on me. She called me incompetent. She humiliated me. And where were you, Tyler?" She threw the photo at him. It hit him in the chest. "You were gambling," she said. "You were gambling away the money I borrowed. You were betting with my life." Tyler scrambled to gather the photos, trying to hide them, as if removing the evidence would erase the truth. "I can fix it," he babbled. "I will go to counseling. I will get a job. We can start over. Your dad has money now. We can use it to pay off the debts. We can be happy, Zoe. Just tell him to stop. Tell him to pay off the house and we can go back to normal." That was it. The slip. the truth hiding inside the lie. Even now, on his knees, begging for his life, he was still calculating. He was still looking for the payout. He did not see Zoe. He saw a lifeline to my bank account. Zoe went very still. She looked at him with a clarity that was terrifying. "You do not want me," she whispered. "You want the safety net." Tyler shook his head frantically. "No, baby, I love you. I have always loved you." Zoe laughed. It was a sharp, broken sound. "You loved your mother's money," she said. "You loved the lifestyle she promised you. And when that ran out, you loved my money. Or at least the money you could squeeze out of my name. You loved the idea of owning me. You loved having a wife you could control, a wife you could use to pay your debts." She walked around the table, closing the distance between them. Tyler looked up hopeful, thinking he had broken through. He started to smile, a weak, tentative smile. "You never loved me," Zoe said, her voice rising. "You watched me drown, Tyler, for months. You watched your mother hold my head under the water, and you did not throw me a rope. You took pictures. You took bets. You let me think I was failing when you were the one drilling holes in the boat." Tyler reached for her hand again. "Zoe, please." Zoe's hand moved, but she did not take his. She swung. Her palm connected with his cheek with a crack that sounded like a whip. It was a full-body strike fueled by months of exhaustion, humiliation, and betrayal. Tyler's head snapped to the side. He cried out in shock, holding his face. The silence that followed was absolute. Zoe stood over him, her chest heaving, her hands stinging. She looked at her palm, then at him. "Get up," she said. Her voice was ice. Tyler stared at her. He had never seen this woman before. He knew the quiet Zoe, the obedient Zoe, the Zoe who just wanted to please. He did not know the daughter of Caleb Jefferson. "Get up!" she screamed. Tyler scrambled to his feet, backing away from her until he hit the wall. Zoe turned to Stone. "Give them to me," she said. Stone did not hesitate. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a stapled document, the divorce papers. He had drafted them the night before on my instructions. He handed them to Zoe, along with a heavy silver pen. Zoe took the papers. She did not read them. She did not need to. She threw them onto the mahogany table. "Sign them," she said to Tyler. Tyler looked at the papers. Divorce decree. Waiver of assets. Admission of fault. "I cannot sign that," he said, his voice rising in panic. "If I sign that, I get nothing. I lose the house. I lose the business." "You lost those a long time ago," Zoe said. "Sign it, Tyler, or my father sues you for fraud. He sues you for identity theft. He sues you for the $80,000 you stole, and you go to prison." Tyler looked at me. I was sitting in my chair watching him. I did not say a word. I just tapped my finger on the ledger of his gambling debts. The threat was clear. Sign the papers and walk away with nothing, or fight and go to jail with nothing. Tyler picked up the pen. His hand was shaking so badly he could barely hold it. He looked at the document. He looked at Zoe. He looked for a trace of the woman who used to love him. But she was gone, replaced by a stranger with eyes like flint. He scrawled his name on the signature line. The pen tore through the paper. There, he spat, throwing the pen down. "Are you happy now? You ruined my life." Zoe picked up the papers. She checked the signature. She handed them back to Stone. "I did not ruin your life, Tyler," she said quietly. "I just stopped paying for it." She pointed to the door. "Now get out." Tyler looked at her with pure venom. The mask of the grieving husband fell away, revealing the rat underneath. "You were just like your father," he sneered. "You think you are better than us because you have money now. But you are trash, Zoe. You will always be trash. You are a waitress playing dress-up. You will be alone forever." I stood up. I did not need to speak. The movement was enough. Tyler flinched. He backed toward the door. "Security," I said into the air. The guards who had been waiting in the hall stepped in. They grabbed Tyler by the arms. This time, he did not fight. He went limp, defeated. But as they dragged him toward the elevator, he started screaming, a long, wordless howl of rage. "You will pay for this," he shrieked, his voice echoing down the corridor. "You will all pay. My mother will destroy you." The elevator doors opened. The guards shoved him inside. The doors closed, cutting off his voice. The boardroom was quiet again. Zoe stood by the table, her hand resting on the spot where she had signed her freedom. She took a deep breath. She looked at me. "I thought I would feel sad," she said, her voice sounding surprised. "I thought it would hurt," and I asked, walking over to her. She looked down at her hand. The redness from the slap was fading. "I feel light," she said. "I feel like I can breathe for the first time in years." She looked at the empty chair where Tyler had sat. "He really never loved me, did he, Dad?" I put my arm around her. "He did not know how to love Zoe," I said. "He only knew how to want. There is a difference." Zoe nodded. She wiped a single tear from her cheek. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," I said, turning her toward the window where the city lay spread out before us. "Now we rebuild. We take back your shop. We fix the wall. We brew some coffee. And we live our lives without looking over our shoulders." Zoe smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "I am going to need a new apron," she said. I laughed. "We can afford it," I said. I looked at Stone. He was already packing up the papers, the divorce decree safely filed away. "File it today, Stone," I said. "I want the ink dry before lunch." "Done," Stone said, closing his briefcase. I took Zoe's hand. "Come on," I said. "Let's go get some lunch. I know a place that makes terrible tea but has great potential." Zoe squeezed my hand. "Dad," she said. "Yeah, honey. Thank you. Not for the money, but for helping me find my voice." I kissed her forehead. "You always had it, baby," I said. "You just needed a quiet room to hear it in." We walked out of the boardroom, leaving the ghosts of the Whitmores behind us. The air in the hallway felt cleaner, lighter. We stepped into the elevator, and as the doors closed, I knew that the hardest part was over. But the war was not done. Patricia was out there, and a woman like that did not go quietly into the night. She would strike back, and when she did, we would be ready. I sat in the dark of my office watching the glow of the laptop screen. Patricia Whitmore was crying. She was good at it. She sat in her living room, wearing a simple black dress, no jewelry and no makeup. She looked like a grieving widow. She looked like a victim. She was live streaming to 50,000 people. "He came into our lives like a predator," she sobbed, wiping a tear that I suspected was induced by an onion hidden off camera. "He used his billions to destroy my family. He bought my son's debt. He bought my mortgage. And then he forced my son to divorce his wife. He is a monster. A rich, powerful man who gets off on crushing widows like me. He threw me out of my own business. He stole my retirement. And now I am homeless." I watched the comments scroll by. They were vicious. "Eat the rich. Destroy Caleb Jefferson. Justice for Patricia." People love a victim, especially when the villain is a wealthy landlord. Patricia knew exactly which buttons to push. She was weaponizing her fragility. She was turning her greed into a crusade. Zoe was sitting on the sofa behind me. She was shaking. "Dad, look at this," she said, holding up her phone. I looked. It was a video of a group of people standing outside my building. They were holding signs. One of them threw a brick. It smashed into the plate glass of the lobby door. The security guard ducked. "They are attacking us," Zoe whispered. "They think we are the bad guys." I turned back to the screen. Patricia was ramping up. "He hates us because we are different," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "He has a vendetta. He called me trash. He called my son a parasite. He thinks because he has money he can treat people like dirt. Well, I am not afraid. I am going to fight him. I am going to expose him for the tyrant he is." She ended the stream. The screen went black. I leaned back in my chair. She had played her hand. It was a strong hand. The court of public opinion did not care about contracts or gambling debts. They cared about optics. And right now, I looked like a bully. But Patricia had made one fatal mistake. She assumed I was playing by the same rules she was. She assumed I would respond with a press release or a lawsuit. She did not know I had been recording her since day one. I picked up my phone. I called Stone. "Is it ready?" I asked. "It is scrubbed and mastered," Stone said. "The audio is crystal clear. We have the metadata to prove the time and location. It is bulletproof." "Do it," I said. "Upload it. Everywhere." I hung up. I looked at Zoe. "Do not be afraid, baby," I said. "The truth moves slower than lies, but it hits harder." I turned the laptop toward us. I opened the social media feed where Patricia had just posted her sob story. I refreshed the page. A new video appeared. It was posted from an anonymous account. The title was simple, "The Real Patricia Whitmore." I pressed play. The screen was black, but the audio was high definition. It started with the sound of breaking china. Then Patricia's voice cut through the silence, loud and shrill. "Look at this mess," she screamed. "You are useless. You are nothing but a drain on my family. Cleaning this up is all you are good for." Then came the sound of the slap, the sharp crack of flesh on flesh. Zoe flinched, even though it was a recording. The audio cut to another clip. This one was from the kitchen. The background noise of the dishwasher hummed. "Zoe is a non-factor," Patricia's voice sneered. "She is spineless. I have her running in circles. Today I made her scrub the floor in front of the mayor's wife. It was hilarious. I watched the view count on the video tick up. 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. The audio continued. It was the conversation with Tyler. We trigger the default next week. We take the shop, we take the equipment, and she gets left with the debt. It is clean, it is legal, and it is going to make us a fortune." And then came the kill shot, the clip I had recorded when she thought she was alone with her friends. "They are a family of servants, Veronica," she said, her voice dripping with disgust. "It is in their DNA. I have the father washing dishes in the back. Can you believe it? Free labor. That is all people like them are good for." The racial slur that followed was bleeped out, but the intent was clear. The venom was palpable. It was not just greed, it was hate, pure, unadulterated racism, masked as high society superiority. The video ended. I refreshed the page again. The comments on Patricia's original video had stopped. Then they started disappearing. People were deleting their support. Then the new comments started pouring in on the audio release. "Oh my God, she is a monster. She slapped her. Did you hear what she said about his race? Cancel her." The tide turned so fast it was dizzying. The internet mob that had been at my door 5 minutes ago suddenly realized they had been marching for a devil. My phone rang. It was Stone. "It is trending," he said. #1 worldwide. The hashtag is Patricia the Predator." "Good," I said. "What about the sponsors?" "They are dropping like flies," Stone said. "The charity board she sits on just issued a statement removing her. The country club suspended her membership. And her book deal, the one she has been bragging about for months. The publisher just tweeted that they are severing ties, effective immediately." I hung up. I looked at Zoe. She was staring at the screen, her eyes wide. She said, "Those things about us," Zoe whispered. "About our people." "She did," I said. "And now everyone knows." I stood up and walked to the window. Down below, the crowd of protesters had gone silent. They were looking at their phones. I saw one man lower his sign. Then he dropped it on the sidewalk and walked away. Another followed. Within minutes, the street was empty. But I was not done. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see the moment she realized her mask was gone. I turned to Zoe. "Stay here," I said. "I have one last errand to run." I took the elevator down to the garage. I got into my truck. I drove to the Heights. Patricia's house was dark. The driveway was empty. The repo man had come for the Mercedes an hour ago. I parked across the street. I did not get out. I just watched. Through the large front window, I could see the glow of a television. Patricia was standing in the middle of her living room. She was holding a glass of wine. She was staring at the TV. I knew what she was watching. Every news channel in the city was playing the audio. Her voice, her hate, broadcast into every living room in the state. I saw her phone light up. She looked at it. She threw it across the room. It smashed against the wall. She sank to her knees. She put her hands over her ears as if she could block out the sound of her own destruction. But she could not. It was everywhere. Then a car pulled up to the house. It was not Tyler. It was a sedan with a government seal on the door. 2 men in suits got out. They walked up the path. They pounded on the door. Patricia did not move. The men pounded again. "Police, open up." She stood up slowly. She looked old. The elegance was gone. The arrogance was gone. She was just a lonely, hateful woman in a house she did not own, waiting for the consequences she thought would never come. She walked to the door. She opened it. The officer spoke to her. One of them pulled out a pair of handcuffs. Patricia looked back at the empty street. For a second, our eyes met across the distance. I did not smile. I did not gloat. I just nodded. She looked down. She held out her wrists. The metal clicked. They led her down the path. They put her in the back of the car. The blue lights flashed, illuminating the manicured lawn she had prized so highly. I put my truck in gear. I drove away. The war was over. The enemy was captured. And tomorrow, I would have coffee with my daughter in a shop that finally belonged to her. The morning fog still clung to the manicured hedges of the heights when the convoy turned the corner. It was not the silent approach of a predator stalking its prey. It was the heavy, rolling thunder of inevitable justice. I sat in the driver's seat of my black SUV parked a block away with the engine idling. The windows were tinted dark enough to hide my face, but I could see everything. Beside me sat Zoe. She was not trembling anymore. She was watching with the cold precision of a juror, waiting for the verdict. We had been waiting for an hour. Stone had tipped me off that the warrant was being executed at 6 a.m. sharp. The Economic Crimes Unit did not believe in sleeping in. They liked to catch white-collar criminals before they had their morning coffee and before they could shred the evidence. 3 black sedans and a reinforced tactical van pulled up in front of Patricia Whitmore's house. The lights were off inside. The repo man had taken the Mercedes, but Tyler's sedan was still in the driveway, looking small and vulnerable. The car doors opened in unison. 12 agents stepped out, wearing blue windbreakers with yellow lettering on the back. Federal agents. They moved with a synchronized efficiency that was beautiful to watch. 2 went to the back perimeter. 2 secured the driveway. The rest marched up the front walk. The lead agent pounded on the door. It was a heavy, authoritative sound that echoed down the quiet street. Federal agents, open the door. There was no answer. The agent pounded again, harder this time. Open the door or we will breach. A light flickered on in the upstairs window. Then the porch light came on. The door opened a crack. I could see Patricia's face, pale and devoid of makeup, peering out through the gap. She was wearing a silk robe that she probably bought with my daughter's stolen credit. "What is the meaning of this?" she screeched, her voice carrying through the morning air. "Do you know what time it is?" The lead agent held up a document. "Patricia Whitmore, we have a warrant to search these premises and an arrest warrant for you and Tyler Whitmore. Step back and open the door." Patricia tried to slam the door shut, but the agent blocked it with his boot. He pushed it open and the team flooded inside. Zoe gripped my arm. "They are going in, Dad." "Watch closely, baby," I said. This is the part where the house of cards falls down. We could not hear what was happening inside, but I could imagine it. I knew exactly what they were looking for because I was the one who told them where to look. Stone had forwarded the forensic accounting report to the district attorney 3 days ago. It was a roadmap to a crime scene that had been active for 5 years. Inside the house, Patricia was backed against the wall of her foyer, watching strangers tear her life apart. They were emptying drawers. They were pulling paintings off the walls to check for safes. They were seizing computers and phones. Tyler came running down the stairs wearing nothing but boxer shorts and a t-shirt. He looked like a frightened child. "Mom, what is happening?" he yelled. "Who are these people?" "Shut up, Tyler," Patricia hissed. "Do not say a word. Call the lawyer." But Tyler did not have a phone. An agent had already snatched it from his hand. "Tyler Whitmore," the agent said, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, identity theft, and bank fraud. Turn around and place your hands behind your back." Tyler's eyes went wide. "Me? I did not do anything. It was her." He pointed a shaking finger at his mother. Patricia's jaw dropped. "Tyler, do not you dare." "She made me do it," Tyler shouted, his voice cracking with panic as the agent spun him around and slapped the cuffs on his wrists. "She set up the accounts. She made me sign Zoe's name. I just did what she told me. She said it was the only way to save the house." The agent paused. He looked at Tyler. "Are you willing to state that on the record, son?" "Yes," Tyler babbled, desperate to save his own skin. "I will tell you everything. She has a safe in the basement, behind the wine rack. That is where she keeps the ledger. She has been using Zoe's social security number since the day we got married. She opened shell companies in Zoe's name to launder money from her failed consulting firm." Patricia lunged at him. "You traitor," she screamed. "You spineless little worm. I did that for you. I did it to pay your gambling debts." An agent restrained her, holding her back. "You have the right to remain silent, Mrs. Whitmore," the agent said. "I suggest you use it." Back in the SUV, I watched as the agent started bringing out boxes of evidence. Box after box. They were filled with files, binders, and hard drives. Zoe gasped. "Dad, look." I followed her gaze. 2 agents were carrying out a metal lockbox. It matched the description Tyler had just given, the safe from the basement. "That is it," I said. "That is the smoking gun." Inside that box was the proof of a betrayal so deep it made the tea room incident look like a misunderstanding. Patricia had not just stolen the shop, she had been stealing Zoe's life for years. She had used my daughter's credit to finance her lifestyle, to hide her income from the IRS, and to cover up her own business failures. Every time Zoe applied for a car loan or a credit card and got rejected, it was because of Patricia. Every time Zoe struggled to make ends meet, it was because Patricia was siphoning off her financial identity. The front door opened again. This time Tyler came out. He was handcuffed. He was crying. He was barefoot. An agent led him down the path to the back of the waiting van. He looked toward the street, scanning the parked cars. His eyes locked onto my SUV. He could not see me through the tint, but he knew I was there. He mouthed the word, "sorry." I did not feel pity. I did not feel satisfaction. I felt nothing but a cold resolve. He was where he belonged. Then came Patricia. She was not walking. She was being dragged. She was kicking and screaming, fighting the agents with the ferocity of a cornered rat. She had lost her robe in the struggle and was being led out in her silk pajamas. Her hair was wild. Her face was twisted into a mask of pure hate. "Get your hands off me," she shrieked. "I am innocent. This is a setup. It is a conspiracy." The neighbors were coming out of their houses now. They stood on their lawns in their bathrobes, watching the queen of the neighborhood being dethroned. Patricia saw them. She saw the judgment in their eyes. She saw the end of her social standing. And then she saw my car. She stopped struggling. She stood up straight, pulling against the cuffs. She stared directly at the black SUV. She knew. "It is him," she screamed, pointing with her chin because her hands were bound. "It is that old man. It is Caleb Jefferson. He did this. He planted the evidence. He is trying to frame me." The agents ignored her. They pushed her toward the second sedan. "He is the devil," she howled, her voice cracking. "He is destroying my family. He is jealous because we are better than him. Tell them, Tyler. Tell them he is lying." But Tyler was already in the van, his head bowed in defeat. The agent pushed Patricia's head down and shoved her into the back seat of the car. He slammed the door, shutting off her screams. I watched through the glass. I took off my sunglasses and rubbed my eyes. It was over. The dragon was slain. The castle was crumbled. Zoe let out a long breath she had been holding for 5 years. "Is she going to jail, Dad?" she asked softly. "For a long time, baby," I said. "Tax evasion, identity theft, fraud. The federal sentencing guidelines are not forgiving. And with Tyler testifying against her, she will never see the inside of a country club again." Zoe looked at the house. It looked different now. It looked empty. It looked like just a pile of bricks and wood, not a fortress of intimidation. "I feel bad for Tyler," she said. "He was weak." "Weakness is a choice, Zoe," I said. "He chose to be weak every day. He chose to let his mother run his life. He chose to let her hurt you. And today, he chose to send her to prison to save himself. That is not weakness. That is cowardice." I put the car in gear. I did not want to be here when the news crews arrived. I did not want to give interviews. I did not want fame. I just wanted justice. "Let's go," I said. "Where?" Zoe asked. "To work," I said. "We have a grand opening to plan." As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. The convoy of police vehicles was pulling out, lights flashing. They were taking the Whitmores to a place where their name meant nothing, where their money could not help them, and where the only thing that mattered was the truth. I turned the corner, and the house disappeared from view. The ride back to the city was quiet. Zoe fell asleep, her head resting against the window. She looked younger than she had in years. The lines of stress around her eyes were smoothing out. The weight was gone. I thought about the future. I thought about the shop. I thought about the days ahead when Zoe would stand behind her own counter, serving coffee to people who respected her. I thought about the legacy I was building for her, not just of money, but of strength. I had spent my life building towers of steel and glass. I had amassed a fortune that could buy small countries. But looking at my daughter sleeping peacefully beside me, I realized that this was the most important deal I had ever closed. I had bought her freedom, and the price had been cheap. When we arrived at the new location, the construction crew was already there. They were fixing the wall Patricia had destroyed. They were installing the new espresso machine. They were painting the sign. Zoes Place. I woke her up. "We are here, baby." She opened her eyes and smiled. It was the first real, unburdened smile I had seen in a long time. "Thanks, Dad," she said. I did not say anything. I just squeezed her hand. We got out of the car and walked toward the shop. The smell of fresh paint and roasting coffee beans filled the air. It smelled like victory. But as we walked through the door, my phone buzzed. I pulled it out. It was a text from Stone. Subject: update. Body: Patricia Whitmore's lawyer just called. She wants to cut a deal. She says she has information on a bigger fish. She claims she was laundering money for a cartel. She wants immunity. I stopped. I looked at the text. A cartel. So Vinny was not just a bookie, and Patricia was not just a greedy mother-in-law. She was a mule. I looked at Zoe. She was laughing with the painter, discussing the shade of blue for the trim. She was happy. She was safe. I typed a reply to Stone. No deals. Burn her. I put the phone away. Patricia Whitmore had made her bed. Now she could lie in it, or die in it. It made no difference to me. I walked over to the counter and picked up a rag. There was dust on the surface. I started wiping. I am Caleb Jefferson. I am a janitor. I am a father. And I am the man who cleans up the mess. The smell of roasted beans and cinnamon filled the air on 4th and Main. It was a Saturday morning, exactly 1 year after the day the water main burst and washed away the Whitmore pretensions. The line for Zoes Place stretched out the door and down the block, past the new flower boxes I had installed, and the fresh brickwork I had pointed myself. The sign above the door was hand-painted gold lettering on reclaimed wood, simple and elegant. It did not scream luxury. It whispered quality. I sat at a small table in the corner near the window. I had a rag in my hand. I had just wiped down a spill left by a toddler with a sippy cup. I did not have to do it. Zoe had 12 employees now. She had a manager. She had a cleaning crew that came in every night. But I liked the feel of the wood under my hand. I liked the rhythm of the work. It reminded me of where I came from, and it kept me grounded, while my bank account continued to grow into the stratosphere. I watched my daughter. She was standing behind the main counter, directing traffic. She was not wearing a maid uniform. She was wearing a tailored blazer and jeans. Her hair was cut short, sharp, and professional. She moved with the confidence of a woman who knew exactly what she was worth. She was not asking for permission anymore. She was giving orders. But she gave them with kindness, with a smile that made her staff want to work harder for her. She had learned the most important lesson of leadership. You do not climb by stepping on people. You climb by pulling them up with you. A young man in a suit, probably an associate at a nearby law firm, stopped by my table. "Excuse me, sir, are you finished with that chair?" he asked. I looked up. I adjusted my glasses. "I am using it for my coat, son." He looked at my flannel shirt. He looked at my work boots. He sneered just a little. "Right. Well, if you are not buying anything, maybe you should free up the space for paying customers." I smiled. It was a reflex. Old habits die hard. "I am waiting for the owner," I said. The lawyer rolled his eyes and walked away, muttering about loiterers. I did not correct him. I did not pull out my black card or my deed. I just watched him go. I did not need his respect. I had my own. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a notification from the corrections department, an automated update I had subscribed to. Inmate number 89402 Tyler Whitmore. Status: active. Location: Federal Correctional Institution, Danbury. Assignment: laundry duty. I put the phone away. Justice had a sense of humor. The man who cared so much about the thread count of his suits was now spending 12 hours a day washing prison uniforms in industrial bleach. He had pled guilty to avoid a 20-year sentence. He got 5 years. Stone told me he was having a hard time. The other inmates did not appreciate his arrogance. He was learning humility the hard way. I hoped it would stick, but I doubted it. Some stains do not wash out. I looked out the window across the street to the vacant lot where a new high-rise was going up. Jefferson Towers. It would be mixed-income housing, affordable units for families who needed a break. I was building it for the people who scrubbed floors and drove trucks. But my mind drifted further to the south side of the city, to a neighborhood that the guidebooks warned tourists to avoid. There was a motel there, the Starlight Inn. It was a run-down place with peeling paint and flickering neon. It was the kind of place where people ended up when they had burned every bridge and salted the earth behind them. Patricia Whitmore lived in room 12. She had lost the house in the Heights. She had lost her cars. She had lost her friends. The IRS had seized her remaining assets to pay back the taxes she had evaded for a decade using my daughter's identity. She was working the night shift at a 24-hour diner, washing dishes. The irony was not lost on me. But the kicker, the detail that made me sleep like a baby at night, was that she did not know who her landlord was. I had bought the Starlight Inn 6 months ago through a subsidiary of a shell company nested inside a trust. Patricia paid her weekly rent in cash to a manager I employed. She lived under a roof I owned. She slept on a mattress I paid for, and every time she turned on the tap, she was using water I provided. I could have evicted her. I could have thrown her on the street. Stone asked me why I did not. He said she deserved the gutter. But I told him no. Let her stay. Let her live in the squalor she used to mock. Let her serve coffee to truck drivers and scrub grease off plates. Let her feel every single day what it is like to be the help. I watched her sometimes, from a distance. I saw her walking to the bus stop, her shoulders hunched, her expensive clothes replaced by thrift store polyester. She looked angry. She looked bitter. But she also looked real for the first time in her life. She was finally living the life she could actually afford. Zoe walked over to my table. She placed a fresh cup of coffee and a warm croissant on the wood. "On the house," she said, smiling. I looked at her. "You are breaking the profit margin, boss." Zoe laughed. She sat down in the chair the lawyer had wanted. She took a sip of her own coffee. "How are you, Dad?" she asked. "I am good, baby," I said. "I am just admiring the view." She looked around the shop. "It is busy today. We beat last month's numbers by 15%. I nodded. "That is good. You should think about opening a second location." Zoe shook her head. "Not yet. I want to get this one perfect first. I want to pay off the building." I looked at her over the rim of my cup. "The building is paid off, Zoe. I bought it cash, remember?" "I know," she said, "but I am paying you back. Every month. The rent check is in the mail." I started to protest, but she held up a hand. "No, Dad. You taught me. Independence. I want to own this, really own it. Not just on paper. I want to know I earned it." I felt a lump in my throat. She was more like me than I ever realized. She had the Jefferson steel in her spine. "Okay," I said, "but give me a family discount on the rent." She grinned. "We will see." She reached across the table and took my hand. Her palm was rough. She still worked the bar. She still cleaned. She had calluses. They were badges of honor. "I saw Patricia yesterday," Zoe said softly. I stiffened. "Where? Did she come here?" "No," Zoe said. "I was driving past that diner on 3rd. She was taking out the trash. She looked tired." "Did you stop?" I asked. Zoe shook her head. "No. I wanted to. Part of me wanted to get out and scream at her. Part of me wanted to give her money. But I just kept driving. I realized I did not have anything to say to her anymore. The hate is gone, Dad. It is just nothing. She is a stranger." "That is good," I said. "That is healing. Hate is heavy. You do not need to carry it." Zoe squeezed my hand. "You carried it for me. You carried it so I did not have to. I did what a father does," I said. Zoe stood up. She smoothed her blazer. "I have to get back to the line," she said. "We are down a barista." "Go," I said. "Get to work." She kissed my cheek and walked back to the counter. I watched her go. I watched her joke with a regular customer. I watched her check the grind on the espresso machine. She was in her element. She was safe. She was free. I finished my coffee. I stood up and put on my jacket. I picked up the rag and wiped the table down one last time, leaving it cleaner than I found it. I walked to the door. The little bell chimed as I pushed it open. I stepped out onto the sidewalk. The sun was shining. The city was alive. People think money changes you. They think if you give a poor man $1 million, he becomes a different person. But they are wrong. Money is just a magnifying glass. If you are a good person, money makes you better. It gives you the power to do more good. If you are a bad person, money makes you worse. It gives you the power to inflict more pain. Patricia and Tyler thought money was a mask. They used it to hide their rot. They used it to pretend they were better than everyone else. But when the money was gone, the rot was all that was left. I never needed a mask. I am Caleb Jefferson. I am a black man in America. I am a janitor. I am a billionaire. I am a father. I walked to my truck and climbed in. The engine roared to life with a familiar rattle. I merged into traffic heading toward the construction site of the new affordable housing tower. I had given my daughter a fishing rod. I had given her a shop and a chance. But I had also shown her the other side of the coin. I had shown her that you have to protect your catch. You have to watch the water. And you have to be ready to fight the sharks. I smiled as I drove past the diner where Patricia worked. I tapped the steering wheel in time to the radio. I had broken the sharks' teeth. I had shattered their jaws. And I had left them swimming in the shallow end where they belonged. My daughter was fishing in clear waters now, and God help anyone who tried to muddy them again. I turned the corner and drove on. There was work to do. There were floors to scrub. There were empires to build. And I was just getting started. This journey taught us that true wealth isn't measured by the car you drive or the club you belong to. It is measured by your integrity. Patricia and Tyler believed that status shielded them from consequences, but they learned the hard way that arrogance is just a fragile mask. I built an empire from nothing, yet my proudest moment wasn't closing $1 million deal. It was watching my daughter find her voice. Never let anyone make you feel small. Just because they stand on a pedestal of debt and lies. Stand tall in your truth, and the world will eventually adjust. Have you ever had to cut off a toxic family member to save your own peace? I want to hear your story in the comments below, and if you enjoyed seeing justice served, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this.